You know, a funny thing happens over the course of, I guess, maturation, as we call it, Eddie, right?
Maturity?
Getting older, growing up, right?
Maturity?
Maturity, thank you. Because your mindset about things changes. Your outlook on things that at one time you took for granted. Now, this is, and I know yesterday I was on remote, so good to see you again. I'm happy to see that you're wearing that, and that is an awesome-looking hat.
It is. Very nice.
The new Indianapolis Indians. How would you describe that? Insignia logo? Is that what it is?
Sure. Scripture?
Monogram logo?
Not sure.
At any rate, a very cool hat that Eddie's got on. So, how old were you, Eddie? This is Thanksgiving week, and there's a reason I'm bringing all this up as it relates to sports in Indianapolis. How old were you when you first truly began to appreciate and or look forward to Thanksgiving? Or maybe you're not there yet. I understand.
I always look forward to it because it was always a time for me to see my cousins because I have so many cousins that don't live here.
Okay.
So, I don't know, probably when I was a teenager.
Okay. So, for me, Thanksgiving was always this, like, yin and yang. It was this dichotomy of emotion. It was this mixed review for me. Because when I was a kid, I knew that we would get out of school for Thanksgiving. And I knew that my cousin Doug's grandparents, Tom and Anna Lee, would come over. I knew that my grandparents, Honey and Nana, as we called them, would come over. I knew that my family was there. My Aunt Judy was there. My cousin Doug was there. So, it was a larger family gathering, to your point, Eddie. And the weather was like typically a chill in the air and et cetera. And there was football on, and it was always the Detroit Lions and the Bears or whatever else, and the Macy's Thanksgiving Day Parade. And then for whatever reason, and I don't know why this is in my mind, but seemingly, and maybe people of my age group or beyond could tell me if I'm right or wrong on this or if my recollection is accurate. But in my mind, the Wizard of Oz or The Sound of Music would always be on like CBS that night after football and whatever else, and you sat with the family eating pumpkin pie and watching it. And all of those things theoretically would make it seem as though you would like it as a kid. You would look forward to it as a kid. Except for that I didn't really like the food because I never liked eating like super nutritious food. And this is the big point. Felt like Christmas, looked kind of like Christmas, same people as Christmas, wasn't Christmas. And so therefore, it was like, even though Christmas was still, I knew that meant that Christmas was around the corner and that was good. It was like Thanksgiving was like this tease because everybody's over and I'm out of school for the day and I'm excited about it and we're watching the same movies that we watch on Christmas night, but it's not Christmas. And there's no gifts. Once we get done with the pumpkin pie and the turkey and dressing and like beets and cranberries, there's no gifts. There's no Santa Claus. There's no candy cane. There's no stocking. There's none of that, right? And so it felt a little bit like this tease of what you know is at least around the corner, but what you've been through before with these people. And last night, and I love this year, now that I'm older, and I think it begins to happen, you truly begin to appreciate the true meaning of Thanksgiving when you start to realize, like, who's not there. When you get older and you realize, gosh, you know what? Like, Nana and Honey aren't here anymore. Tom and Anna Lee aren't here anymore. Aunt Judy's not here anymore. And you have then this appreciation, this growing love for being able to soak in and embrace the true gifts that we have. It's sitting down at the Thanksgiving table. And that's the true gift as opposed to those that are under the tree or under the stocking. But nonetheless, last night as I'm at the Pacer game, I'm watching the Pacers play and I'm seeing them down and, they're down 18 or like 20 at one point. I turn around to my buddy Reggie sitting next to me and I say, like, you know what? This got away kind of quickly. Like, it wasn't like Detroit came out on some big run. It just, all of a sudden you looked up and you're like, oh gosh, they're putting this game away. And the Pistons have a lot of great players. But the Pacers then suddenly start coming back. And Nander Nimhard makes a fancy play and throws a nice pass to Isaiah Jackson, who scores on a layup with a foul. And Pascal Siakam has a fadeaway look in the lane where, you're looking at it and you're going, the athleticism of being able to finish that shot, that play is truly impressive. And Jarris Walker, and Eddie, I don't know if we happen to have, at some point we should play it today if you know where it is. I don't know if you would. The interview that we had done with Jarris Walker when he talks about the game slowing down, because we're seeing it before our very eyes once again. But last night, the game finally for Jarris Walker slowed down, and he just played in flow, and he had probably his best game from a scoring standpoint and his most efficient game as a Pacer. And all of these things are happening, and before you know it, you look up and you go, oh my gosh. They are within one possession. They're within two possessions. They're within one possession. They got a great defensive stop. Carson Cunningham, they got a shot clock violation, and Cunningham goes to the free throw line. Oh, my gosh, he just missed one of the two free throws, and now you're within one shot. And it feels like the holidays of the past. It feels like last year's Pacers. And you start getting excited because as you're watching it and you're seeing this comeback and you're seeing this tenacity and you're seeing this energy and you're thinking to yourself, this is what I love. It's the same feel. It's the same storyline. It's the same people for the most part of what I enjoy every year when I think about Christmas. But it's Thanksgiving week. And then you think about who's not there. And you have an appreciation for what you're seeing, and you have an appreciation and a grasp for making the most out of the fact that they did not finish that game last night and get a win, but you start thinking about who's not there. There's no Tyrese Halliburton. There's no Obi Toppin. There's no, Aaron Nesmith. There's no Johnny Furphy. And there's limited in terms of the other players. Now, obviously, I am not comparing losing a player to injury to losing a loved one over the course of evolution of aging. But you get my point in the fact that then you get excited because you know what is still yet to be around the corner. And what's yet to be around the corner is eventually getting that group back together like we saw some 6 months ago, and you're still chasing that, what is fresh in your mind from it. Okay? And that's what, and I'm not here to sit here and carry the Pacers' water, but it is, to me, really something that I'm looking up in the crowd and I'm seeing how many people were there last night, and the crowd's into it and everybody's chanting defense. And I mean, this is a team that's won 2 games. I don't even know the loss column at this point. What are they, 2-15, 2-16? And yet everybody still feels, and maybe I'm naive here, but it feels like everybody is still bought in because of the fact that we know why they're bad. It's one thing to be bad because all of a sudden the chemistry just went sour. It's one thing to be bad because you got a star that wants a new contract and he's sulking and it is becoming a team cancer. It's one thing to be bad because the coach is just coming up with bad game plans. But it's none of that. It's guys that were formerly on 10-day contracts that now get a non-guaranteed deal that are hitting big shots for you and are on the floor down the stretch. And it's guys that have the same bite. TJ McConnell, irritating people by just being nonstop motor. It's all of those things. And everyone knows that at this point, the thing standing between the Pacers and the competitiveness that we've seen is simply the personnel that is available. But everything else feels and looks the same. And for that reason, you have to be optimistic. Now, one of the players, and yes, we have Colts to get to today as well. Stephen Holder going to join us on the program. Trey Essex as well, because there are some questions I have about the Colts that we're going to get into today in addition to the Pacers talk. But because the Pacers played last night, the other thing, Eddie, that when I look at Indiana last night, one of the key aspects of this season is going to be, and it doesn't mean that it's going to be fun, but one of the key aspects is going to be this gives the Pacers, this gives Rick Carlisle, this gives Kevin Pritchard, this gives Chad Buchanan a chance to truly assess their roster genuinely and legitimately, to see where they are and who you could ride with and who are guys that now that the moment is there for them, what can they do with it? And one of the players in that capacity that I've just been tantalized by, but at the same time frustrated with, is Jarris Walker. Jarris Walker, as I talk about with the NFL, a lot of times a guy is evaluated not even necessarily by who he is, but how you got him. Daniel Jones is found money for the Colts. Basically, because they gave him a one-year contract at a pretty, even though $13 million, I think it is a ton of money. In NFL standards, that's a very friendly contract for 1 year. And he's playing at a now suddenly eyebrow-raising level, but still in totality a high level for the Colts. And certainly through the first 7 games, the highest of levels. And it was like, holy cow, we are all in on this. And a lot of what he's done is similar to what he did in New York when people were getting restless because of how he was acquired in New York. He was a first-round pick. He was way high. They gave him money, etc. That investment in what you have hanging in the balance for him creates a higher expectation and a bigger desire for return on investment than it does when you just sign him to a one-year deal and take a flyer. And Jarris Walker, unlike, obviously, Jeremiah Robinson Earl, Jarris Walker, unlike, for that matter, T.J. McConnell, Jay Huff, he's a guy that you drafted within the lottery. He's a guy that you drafted at a spot that you were not used to historically and by precedent in the last 30 years, drafting in those positions of where and how you acquire them, and that creates and raises an expectation and an eventual return on investment. Jarris Walker, a top 10 pick. And when you have a top 10 pick, you expect results, and you expect them quickly, and you expect them resoundingly. And he has the perfect body. He has a defensive tenacity, you would assume, because he's coming out of Houston, where if you don't guard and you're not a bulldog, you don't play for Kelvin Sampson. And he had at times shown an ability to shoot from the outside. But it always seemed like he was pushing too fast. And it always seemed like when you just needed for him to be going at like the fourth gear, he was going into fifth and sixth gear. Or actually more like first or second gear. Like, the rev limiter was going. And the game seemed to be moving faster than he was, and so he was overcompensatory in trying to speed himself up and then moving faster than the game and not letting it just come to him. And last night was one of the first times where I saw a guy that was just letting the game come to him. He wasn't trying to beat the game to the spot. Now, that sounds absurd, but I kept going back to when we had him on. When was that we had him on the show, Eddie? Was that last season or the beginning of this season?
It was almost it's a little over a year ago, 11/7 of 24.
Okay. So when we had him on, and I asked him if the game was starting to slow down, and I was worried that I was making no sense. But last night, I thought he backed up what he had said in his answer to me some year ago. Here's Jarris Walker then.
What you said to a hooper makes 100%. Like it makes sense. So yeah, the game definitely slows down on offense, on defense. Just like the sets that we're running, the coverages that we're in, like everything is starting to make more sense. And obviously being out there definitely helps with that as well.
Okay. So the game was starting to slow down because I'm telling you, the game was moving too fast for him, and he was trying to move even faster. And that's what I was asking him when I said, does that make sense that it seems like you're moving too fast? And he said, yeah, that does make sense. I thought last night he was really good. Jarris Walker, 8 of 10 from the floor. He was 5 of 6 from three-point range. And the Pacers continued to show that fight and that, holy cow, I'm not saying that they play at the same pace that they did a year ago with Tyrese Halliburton, but last night they showed once again that when they are down big, they can find ways to put them back in position. It was, however, disappointing that they couldn't finish that. Now sitting at 2-15, and up next it's the Toronto Raptors. Colts getting back, obviously, onto the practice field after they will do so tomorrow after their game in Kansas City. One of the things that several people have asked, and I'm looking forward to asking Stephen Holder about this coming up in just over 45 minutes. Daniel Jones, what's that?
Hour 45. Stephen at 2 today.
Oh, sorry, I thought he was at 1 o'clock. Sorry, 2 o'clock. Daniel Jones, I don't think that we are in panic mode yet. I think that you still have to go with and resort to and fall back on the branding of the fact that Daniel Jones is still somebody that has played at a very high level more games this year than he has not. And even though it has been, and the thing that is of concern to me is this. It is once Pittsburgh really started throwing the kitchen sink at him. And I don't know, Kevin or James in the morning, they probably would have a better idea on the numbers of the amount of times that he was blitzed, say, against the Rams or blitzed against the Raiders versus when he was blitzed against Pittsburgh. And then I didn't think Atlanta was overly aggressive against him. But what we can see and what has always been the knock on him is that when things, like Jarris Walker, back to that, when things speed up, he can start to get too quick and get the happy feet, so to speak. And then he starts either throwing too low or rushing passes or not going through his progressions or whatever. And notably, of course, the turnovers have come into play. Kansas City was not overly aggressive against him in the first half, but they were in the second half. And they started bringing that kid, especially if if this guy's not going to hand off to Jonathan Taylor, we're just going to tee off. Let's go. We're bringing it. And several people have asked if, in fact, Daniel Jones, and I think it's very premature here to go here with this, but for the sake of the discussion, if Daniel Jones has a situation where he really all of a sudden backpedals into a hole that he can't get out of, or if that matter, if he is injured, what is the availability then of Anthony Richardson, who is still on IR? And one of the things that I want to talk to Stephen about is the more that we hear about this and the more that you read about this, the more it does appear as though that injury to Anthony Richardson, that eye injury, the orbital fracture that he suffered with that, again, freak injury with the stretch band, that injury might actually have been more severe than what we were led to believe. And that there was maybe even real concern in the beginning that this could be a prolonged issue. Now, I hope, and I don't think that it's at that level, and I certainly hope that is not going to be the case, but I have heard recently that, in fact, that thing was more than just like, oh, yeah, he had a really bad black eye with just, a bone fracture is a bone fracture, don't get me wrong, but that it might have even been more severe than that, feared to be in the moment. And his availability is of great question for this year. And then, of course, that means that Riley Leonard becomes your backup. So you've got to hope that Daniel Jones gets things back into stability. Because I do think, Eddie, you tell me if I'm being too Jake Query typically over analytical in the fact that, I do have some concern that Daniel Jones is regressing a little bit here, and that it might be difficult for him when you look at the defenses they're going to face and you look at the aura of the games that they have moving forward as to whether or not he can recapture that first, quarter of the season level play.
Well, I mean, you knew that there was going to be some sort of regression because the way that they were operating was just unsustainable. Like, they
Correct.
were the most efficient offense.
Historically efficient.
Yes.
Yes.
Like, almost one of the most efficient in NFL history. Like, there was only maybe one or two offenses that were more efficient than the Colts, and now they're just kind of coming back down to earth a little bit. They did, going into last week, had the fourth hardest schedule remaining, so it's going to be a matter of can Daniel Jones and Shane Steichen kind of scheme up some things, because I think they've gotten away from what has worked. Like, they didn't attempt to go down the field at all with Alec Pierce in that loss on Sunday against Kansas City. He had 2 targets, 1 catch. Now, 1 catch, he had a big gain and came up for a first down, and then Josh Downs just really hasn't been involved much this year, and teams are starting to take away the middle of the field, and they're forcing Daniel Jones to make throws outside the numbers, and that's where he's showing a little bit of struggle, and they just got to figure things out all over again, Jake. Like, you had the bye to, kind of self-scout, but now you've kind of got to go, with the bullets flying, for lack of a better phrase, and kind of correct everything that you've done this season to try to get yourself in the right position to be back in the favor of the AFC South, because just the way things stand right now, loss on Sunday and a Jacksonville win, you're tied for first. Are you kissing it goodbye?
No. Saying it's pucker up time, right?
Okay.
You start to pucker up a little bit there.
Yeah, for sure. For sure.
Houston and the way they're playing defensively is what's of concern. I mean, they just corralled Buffalo, for crying out loud. Now, Buffalo, are we starting to already see, and I realize that the Ravens, were decimated by injury, and now it's starting to come together a little bit, but are we already seeing is this the year that we see the transfer of power from the Chiefs, Bills, Ravens, AFC?
Maybe.
And now it's, the Patriots, Broncos, Colts, AFC moving forward?
Maybe, but I still need to see it for New England against a quality opponent. Like, they beat Buffalo in that game. Josh Allen, I think, had 3 turnovers. But outside of that, they haven't played anybody.
Who's their most impressive win? New England. I mean, aside from Buffalo, which is impressive, right? But there are several people that have Buffalo as their most impressive win, which at some point you say, gosh, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
I mean, Buffalo right now is, what are they on the outside looking in? They're darn close. If the playoffs were to begin today, which they don't, but if the playoffs were to begin today, then is Buffalo in?
No.
They are right now sitting at what? They're the 7th seed, aren't they?
Well, yeah, they are. Sorry.
Yeah.
I was thinking of Houston.
And Houston's right there too.
Yeah, Buffalo, Denver. That'd be a pretty fascinating first-round matchup.
Are you sold on Denver? Is anybody sold on Denver?
I don't think anybody is sold on anyone in the AFC.
Denver should be 10-1. Think about that.
11-0.
What was their other loss? I can't remember.
The Chargers. Game-winning field goal at the horn by Cameron Dicker.
I mean, that's tough, man. How about those Denver Broncos? Denver doesn't feel for real. New England doesn't feel for real.
Nobody in the AFC feels for real.
Yes, I'm sure there are people that think Indianapolis does not seem for real, especially right now, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, what's your favorite Thanksgiving food, Eddie?
Side dish wise?
No, you can say turkey.
I only like turkey on Thanksgiving. I'm not a big turkey guy during the course of the year. My mom's sweet potato casserole with the marshmallows on top.
Yeah, that is pretty good. I mean, I've not had your mom's, but that's always pretty good. I love corn pudding. Is that a word? Is that the name of a dish?
Yeah, corn casserole.
Yeah, anything with corn, man. Big corn guy.
Yeah,
love
me too.
Absolutely love it. Okay, I have a question about sports in general and the way that we consume it. And it's because of something that I read last night, and I thought to myself, I wonder if I'm alone on an island. Just me and Wilson the volleyball, alone on an island, or will Eddie have my back, or will listeners have my back? And I think it might be an unpopular opinion, but then again, it might be an unpopular opinion that most people say is unpopular, but deep down they don't want to admit in cocktail parties. They actually like it. I'll tell you what it is, my sports question and thought next. When I was younger, I collected baseball cards. Eddie, you were or were not a baseball card collector?
I was not.
Topps baseball cards, Don Russ baseball cards, Fleer baseball cards, had them all. Loved
Panini?
it. What's that?
Panini?
Panini?
Yeah.
Isn't a panini a kind of bread or something? Like a sandwich? Am I off base there? Is that a card?
I thought
brand?
so.
The Panini card? My peak, I don't think, maybe Panini was around my peak card collecting years would have been 82 to 88, probably, somewhere in there. But by 88, I was probably, on to other things or whatever else.
Panini sounds like a pasta noodle.
I think that's right?
But it is a card, a sports trading card, yeah.
Okay.
Company, yeah.
Well, one of the fun joys of the Topps trading baseball cards, I can still tell you the year based on what it looked like. Like give me a year of the 80s off the top of your head, Eddie Garrison, go.
82.
82. The 82 cards had the little hat, I think, at the bottom, and then kind of a little banner saying the name of the team. 83 had a round circle in the bottom left with a or an action shot of the player or a headshot of the player, and then the player in action. 84, it was the bottom left. It was a square picture of the player. 85 had boldface, the name of the team at the top. So you knew each year by what the card looked like for Topps, at least. But one of the things that I loved was looking at the back of the card and really analyzing the stats of players. And back in my day, I'm going to tell you. But the three things that you knew in baseball, for example, if you were a 300 or better hitter, you were an upper echelon hitter. 300 was the magic number. Guy gets into 320, 330, you're looking at the back of your baseball card, you're like, whoa, this guy was really good. RBI, if it was 100 or more, you knew legit player. And then home runs, and obviously that number has gone up over the course of time, but in those eras, anything 25 or more, certainly 30 or more home runs, you were a league leader.
Mm-hmm.
And then ERA for pitchers, 3 or under is what you were looking for, and strikeouts. And that's basically it. But I loved reading. What's that?
Wins?
Yeah, wins would be a good one. I mean, wins and loss. But I loved reading the cards, and I loved reading the stats. And I think that a lot of people fell in love with sports based on stats. From a rushing standpoint, if you were a 1,000-yard rusher, that was the golden mark. Mm-hmm. Same with receiving. From a throwing standpoint, Dan Marino threw for over 4,000 yards. That was a huge, holy cow. That was a massive number. Basketball, if a guy averaged 30, it was almost unheard of. You are a 20-point per game scorer or more, big deal. In college basketball, you win 20 games, benchmark, probably going to make the tournament. I can appreciate and understand any aspect of sport that creates and allows for people to more actively follow it. But the things that I just mentioned, the numbers that I just mentioned, the benchmarks that I went over, all of those things are things that I was able to follow when I was 8, 9, 10 years old. And they stayed pretty frozen in terms, and I get those things ebb and flow. And maybe I've never sounded older than what I'm about to say. But I read now an NBA box score. Plus minus. That guy on the game was plus minus 9. Which my understanding, and I will admit my ignorance here, that is the cumulative score of when that player was on the floor, correct?
Basically, it is the Pacers, if they had, like, let's say last night Ben Shepherd was minus 10.
Okay.
So the Pacers were being outscored by 10 points when Ben Shepherd was on the floor.
Right.
Therefore, he's a minus 10.
Right, okay. Now, and I don't know, there are people that I'm sure are listening, screaming, going, this guy is a complete moron. I did flunk algebra 7 times. I'm the first to admit it, right?
No, which algebra did you flunk 7 times?
Algebra uno.
Okay.
Now, I said Carson Cunningham earlier for Detroit. Cade Cunningham's obviously what I meant. Carson Cunningham, Purdue. Cade Cunningham last night, okay? Detroit was -1 when he was on the floor.
Mm-hmm.
What does that mean? He played 36 minutes. He was they were -1 when he was on the floor. So they're better off if he's not on the floor? He had a double-double. He carried them down the stretch. He hit big shots for them. What does that mean, -1? Duncan Robinson. They were +15 when Duncan Robinson was on the floor. He was 2 of 10. So was B.J. Bickerstaff supposed to be like, you know what, take Cunningham out and put Duncan Robinson in because we're +15 when he's in there?
Close. J.B. Bickerstaff. Got the letters right.
Sorry.
Wrong order.
I always go with Bernie Bickerstaff, and then I always think Bernie Jr. But yes, you get what I'm saying?
Yeah. It's one of the more misleading statistics.
Okay. Baseball. Baseball now. Can you please explain to me, Eddie, because I don't understand it. You're a baseball guy. What is whip for a pitcher?
Walks, hits, per innings pitched.
So that's just the combination of the two, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. What is VORP?
I don't know that.
Value over replacement player.
Oh, okay.
What is WAR?
Wins above replacement.
Which is the same thing, right? What is the significance of bat velocity or launch angle?
Has a lot to do with just how you hit the ball. Getting, elevation on it if you're going to hit fly balls, home runs, that kind of stuff.
I can tell if a guy hits a fly ball by looking at it. That's a fly ball, right?
Yeah.
I am curious of this. I literally, and I know that I get it. I probably have never sounded older, and maybe it's dumb of me to mention on a sports talk radio program, but I'm convinced of myself that there are more people than just I that agree with this. I think we are starting to out-computerize ourselves with this stuff and out-calculate ourselves in coming up with, because it also changes all the time. In the NFL, is it quarterback rating that we go with now, or is there a different metric that we use? Because it used to be your rating. Oh, he was a 116.8. Well, now we go with QBR, which is a 74, which is better than a 116.8. What? What percent of the true sports fan truly understand, not what they say they understand, what percent truly understand what exactly all of these statistics not only mean, but what their actual impact is on result of game or player contribution? And the reason I say it is because I think there are some areas, baseball is the king of this. I think there are some areas where the over-analysis of statistics are actually taking the common fan and removing them from it, because they then feel like, I didn't want to go to school. I just wanted to watch a game. I didn't know there was going to be math involved. I just want to watch a game. When you look now at a Major League Baseball game, and I loved this year's postseason. I loved it. I just got up off the mat 2 weeks ago from the Blue Jays game as a 10-week diehard fan. But when I'm watching that and a guy comes up to bat, and I'm sitting there looking at the statistics they're providing, I mean, it looks like the telemetry of a Formula One car with all of these different numbers and green and yellow and red and everything else. And all I can think to myself is, what percent of casual fan does this appeal to, and what percent is it turning off because they feel like they are actually entering into a Mensa meeting that they aren't invited to? When I do an IndyCar race, I mean, I understand because I'm around it all the time. And anybody, that's not a matter of my intellect. Anybody who is around it as often as I am in practices and qualifying sessions and talking to drivers, I know what it means to scrub speed. I know what it means in terms of downforce or wing angles taken out on a car. I know what it means to, what is a good fuel efficiency and a bad fuel efficiency on a street course or a road course versus an oval, whatever else. But if I constantly reference that in a broadcast, I'm convinced I would be alienating 85% of the people that are listening. Maybe what I've done in this segment. I have no idea. But, Eddie, you tell me, am I way off base here, or do you think that looking at some of these statistics that are presented seem extraneous, seem somewhat irrelevant and seem like it's speaking to a very, very finite group of people.
I mean, it surely is. I mean, the casual fan doesn't, care about plus minus or a launch angle or exit velocity or wins above replacement or any of that. It's for the nerds like myself that enjoy looking at those kind of numbers.
But you yourself said you're not positive about the plus minus, right?
No, I know what the plus minus is, but I think it's stupid in the NBA because there's so much more scoring. That's a hockey stat. Like, they use that in hockey, which is much more reflective on how valuable a player is on the ice just because there's significantly less scoring.
Last night, the best plus minus for the Pacers was
Jarris
Walker. So Isaiah Jackson was 7 times the plus minus of Pascal Siakam. So was Isaiah Jackson 7 times the contributor of Pascal Siakam last night?
Exactly. That's the point. Plus minus is stupid in basketball.
The more minutes you play, the more it's going to fluctuate, right?
Yeah, like you could be out there for 5 minutes and you could do 0. You could put up no shots. Your stat line could be nothing. No points, no assists, rebounds, anything. And you could be a +7.
Yeah. Kyle Kuzma last year in that playoff game with the Bucks where he got a 0 all the way across the board, right? Literally, call him Longs, he's full of donuts. But yet his plus minus might have been positive. I have no idea. Because who in the world looks at that stat? And I still maintain, by the way, my one other thing, it is driving me bonkers. Bonkers that the ESPN box scores now list the points on the far left-hand side of the column. Change it, please. Change it, please. At least they put minutes over there by it, too, because for a while they had minutes on the far right. The first thing you'd look is your eye goes to the right, and you're like, holy cow. Whoever would have guessed it? Last night, J. Huff had 37. Oh, that's minutes. Drives me bonkers. Scott Agness, by the way, joining us just about 18 minutes from now. It is, by the way, a glorious day in Indiana. It is a glorious day in the Hoosier State. All is right in the world. All is right in the world. Because one of the great injustices, and I say that somewhat flippantly, I totally get it. One of the great injustices now has finally been righted, corrected. The Indiana Basketball Hall of Fame. And, of course, the Indiana Basketball Hall of Fame over in Newcastle, right? They have announced their Hall of Fame class for this year. Now, one person who is getting into the Hall of Fame, Eddie.
Yeah.
I wouldn't say friend of the show, but kind of. Theme of the show. Storyline of the show. How's that?
Mm-hmm.
Because not once, not twice, but like 6 different times we were supposed to have him on the show and have not been able to line it up. You know what I'm talking about?
I do.
Rick Fox. Rick Fox being inducted into the Indiana Basketball Hall of Fame. Now, one thing to me that is peculiar.
How about your childhood icon?
Well, that's what I'm getting at here. One thing to me that is peculiar is this. If you are an Indiana Mr. Basketball, like, for example, I don't know that I think I can say this. I cannot reveal, and nor would I ever, because I have the utmost respect for it. But the Indianapolis Motor Speedway Racing Hall of Fame, I am one of the voters for that Hall of Fame. Matter of fact, I just submitted my entry like a week ago for this year's class. And I literally, I go through it with a fine-tooth comb. I literally look.
Is it a flea comb?
I analyze very heavily who I think should be in. And I weigh it all out. And one of the things with that is, if it's the Indianapolis Motor Speedway Hall of Fame, it would seem almost a foregone conclusion that if you win the Indianapolis 500-mile race, that you would be in it. If you were an Indiana Mr. Basketball, it seems a foregone conclusion that you would automatically be in the Indiana Basketball Hall of Fame. But Jay Edwards, who is one of the all-time greats. Now, Rick Fox in, Ed Schilling is in, and Jay Edwards announced as well. Jay Edwards is one, I can tell you. Just an unbelievable player. One of the, in terms of pure and natural athletic talent and just overall feel for the game, there is not a player that jumps out at me that is more naturally gifted than was Jay Edwards. And three straight at Marion. Cluster truck in the house, baby. What'd you go with, Eddie?
Happy Thanksgiving, Evan. Have a good, happy holidays. I went back to the staple, the Korean barbecue salmon.
You love that, man.
It's
love
so
it.
good. So good.
I again went with the quesadilla because it's fabulous. But Jay Edwards at Marion, Jay Edwards, Lyndon Jones, Derek Keys, Eric Ure, Kyle Persinger, that team was unbelievable. 3 straight state titles, 85, 86, 87, arguably the greatest team in Indiana high school basketball history. And Jay Edwards and Lyndon Jones, co-MVP or co-Mr. Basketballs in 87. Rick Fox was on the 87 All-Star team, but Rick Fox was ineligible in his senior year at Warsaw because of transfer rules from when he had come from the Bahamas and the years of eligibility, etc. But Rick Fox now getting in as well. And as for Edwards, he, upon leaving Marion, obviously went to Indiana. He set a Big Ten record for threes in a game by a freshman at Minnesota as a freshman. And then in his sophomore year, he had one of the most remarkable seasons in Big Ten history, honestly, especially for back then. Playing and starting and being a leading player as a sophomore was so unbelievably rare back then. Almost as much as it's rare now, because if you're a great player, you're gone after your freshman year. But starting as a freshman and playing as a freshman on a defending national championship team, all of it. There was so much lore around Jay Edwards. But as much lore as there was around Jay Edwards, there was also the mystique of the fact that he was the guy that most represented, to an extent, the private hypocrisies of the discipline of Bob Knight. Because Bob Knight was outwardly so vociferous about the demand and discipline of self-discipline for players, and yet Jay Edwards was a guy that just could not keep it in line. And he had, he racked up like $700 in tickets for parking in the president of the university's parking spot on campus. He had failed drug tests. He had an arrest. I mean, he had a lot of issues during the time that he was in Bloomington. And yes, ultimately, Bob Knight made him leave the program, but it was not after Bob Knight had basically been Nadia Comaneci in the way that he had contorted himself in bending over backwards for Jay Edwards.
What was that word?
Nadia Comaneci.
Can you spell and define that, please, so I can add that to my arsenal?
Nadia, Nadia, Comaneci or Comaneci, the last name. She was the 1976 Romanian gymnast with a perfect 10 in the Olympic Games.
Got it.
Married Bart Connor, if I'm not mistaken. But nonetheless, Jay Edwards represented to a great extent how much Bob Knight actually was willing to bend over for a player if the player was good enough. And Edwards' time at Indiana in that sophomore year of '89, when they started out terrible, they went to a three-guard offense. Joe Hillman inserted into the lineup, and Edwards hit shots, game-winning shots on back-to-back-to-back Sundays on ABC. One of them against Purdue, one of them against – the Purdue one actually tied the game. One against Michigan that was one of the greatest plays in Assembly Hall history, and then a shot over the backboard against Illinois that was incredible before Nick Anderson hit a game winner that beat him. But the after basketball life of Jay Edwards was such that he does somewhat represent this dilemma of how much do you weigh in a player in terms of what they're doing on the court, and how much do you weigh in a player in terms of what they're doing away from the court and everything that goes into it. And the Indiana Basketball Hall of Fame had numerous occasions where Edwards was invited back for things. That Marion team was invited back, for the 25th anniversary or the 30th anniversary, whatever it may be. And Edwards a lot of times was like nowhere to be found. And I know at one point they reached out to another Marion player, not going to say any names, like, hey, can you get a hold of Jay and let him know about this as well? And that player was like, look, man, we can only do so much. Jay Edwards, by all account, I don't know him. I've met him. By all account, what I've always heard, very nice man, but very troubled man in his earlier years. And I think that held him back. But if you are going with what a guy has done on the floor, his body of work as a basketball player at both the collegiate and high school level, and notably in going at it, the guy was the best player on arguably the best team in Indiana high school basketball history, and merits being in the Indiana Basketball Hall of Fame. And I did ask Rick Fox if he'd come on the show. We only tried to get him on like 6 times during the finals, and never came to fruition. Haven't heard back yet from Rick. Scott Agness joins us next. You know, while I'm on my toot of probably unpopular opinions.
You mean your rocking chair?
That's right. Here's one for you.
Get off my lawn.
Two things. There was no greater disparity. There was no greater yin and yang. Give me two things that are well known as polar opposites of one another, Eddie.
You and me.
That's okay, not bad. But I think you'll agree with me on this one.
You need the self, you always need complimented and to boost that ego, and I could care less. I know I'm awesome. I don't need the compliments.
I don't listen. At this point in my life, I've had enough compliments to last me a lifetime. I don't need any more. I just love me some me.
That's
right?
a lie.
Do you like these shoes I'm wearing? They look good on me, don't they?
Exactly. Can't even see
okay.
which ones you're wearing today. You're like a woman. You got like 60 pairs.
I do. No greater dichotomy last night than the awesomeness, the 100% awesomeness of the Pacers uniform and the floor. The floor was so good.
Oh, yeah, you weren't there when they debuted it because you were on your extravagant vacation.
Oh, is that the second time they've done those then?
Yeah.
Yeah. I loved it, but I don't know what that human vomit was that was on the Pistons uniforms. Like, let's take every color that absolutely has sucked in uniforms of the last 15 years and put them in one. I mean, all that was missing was teal. Did they raid the Vancouver Grizzlies closet? It was awful.
Like Brooklyn?
I mean, just terrible. It had like a little hint of like a fuchsia, and then at least there like a dark teal and burgundy and But the Pacers one was awesome. Joining us now on the Java House Peel and Pour guest line. Java House, by the way, 25% off site-wide this week, and that is on top of the 25% off you can get with Jake25 as your code. And you can always enter my name, that's Jake, Jake, or the Fan, either one, for the Fan bundle.
You said 25% off site-wide, and I can use your...
Correct. Correctamundo, buddy, half off. Get your Colombian coffee, get your Wrangler Energy, get your Liquid Science hydration. All of it.
I need to talk to the folks over there. We need to get some watermelon.
Okay. We'll work on that. Scott from Fieldhouse Files joining us now. Scott Agness, I'm going to begin with a Pacers trivia question. You have to close your eyes. Don't look at anything when I ask. You ready?
Gotcha.
The old school logo, middle of the floor last night, left or right-handed?
Left is my first thought.
Correct, because you can see the thumb.
That's my first thought immediately. Yeah, because it bends to the right.
That is correct. It is a left-handed hand because it's holding the ball, and you can see the thumb under it. The uniforms were absolutely awesome. I thought last night, Scott, feel free to disagree. It felt a little old-school Pacer last night, and by that I mean old school meaning 6 months ago, based on the fact that the Pacers did not allow themselves to ever totally get out of that game, and they used just kind of that methodical pacing to get themselves back in it. What say you?
Yeah, I would say that second half was as good of basketball as we've seen from this group, especially in the third quarter. Jake, where that's been their real issue throughout the season that we've seen so far in the first month. The second quarter, I would say, did get a little bit away from them. I did think there was a big lull there where you had to use a couple timeouts. You already burned a challenge by that point, which, by the way, got you some nice airtime, I should mention. But overall, as a whole,
Got
I thought
me good airtime?
You saw... Yeah, you did.
How'd I look? Did I look okay?
You did. You were just watching, enjoying it from the courtside seats, kind of jealous.
There we go. Proof is in the pudding.
Hair looked good, yeah. I was tired yesterday. Hope I didn't yawn too much. Anyway, go.
No yawning.
Sorry.
I do worry about that for those people sitting courtside is when you don't know the camera's on you and you're just doing natural things, yawning, wiping your face, and you never know where that goes. But sure, that too. I love the fact that they had the balance, and more than anything, I thought the fact that they got contributions from the bench was significant because as they've gotten thin with their lineups, that second unit just hasn't provided enough punch. And to have four guys in double figures, to have Jarris Walker's best game as a pro, and I thought what was most interesting about what he did is he did everything confidently and quickly. I counted, Jake, among his 10 shots taken, only 9 dribbles to do so. 2 of them were layups in transition. Most of them were catch and shoot threes.
Scott, I'm going to name off and describe a couple of players on the Pacers roster, and I want you to tell me if you can guess which player I'm talking about. Okay?
Gotcha.
Okay, player number 1. At first, I was ready to throw in the towel because I think that we thought there was going to be a production level out of the box unfairly that was higher than what was being produced. But now that water has kind of calmed down a little bit, I look at this player and say, I think this can be a really nice piece on a team that is having this player play 17 to 20 minutes a night off of the bench and can be a nice contributor in that area. What player am I talking about?
That would be Jay Huff.
That is exactly correct. Now, would you agree with that? And by the way, not only were no animals harmed during this experiment, but also Scott and I did not talk about this ahead of time, okay? Would you agree with that assessment?
Entirely. Absolutely. I thought throughout training camp you could see coming to a new team and not being familiar with this pace and this style of play weighed on him. He would bend over and put his arms to his knees, showing how tired he was. And I thought it's taken him a minute to settle in from that front. I think the interchangeable parts at that center spot probably hasn't helped any of them, is because it's not allowed them to get comfortable and unlock whatever their role is. But I think things changed for him maybe 8 games in or so. It's what it felt like. Not only was he playing more confident, I think, in his role and knowing what to provide, but it felt like he was given the green light because he fires right away. And if he doesn't, he might put it on the floor and have a nice dunk at the basket. What's remarkable about him is, and this is exactly why the Pacers were interested in them with their analytics team, is Jay Huff leads all players across the league, Jake, in blocks per minute right now. Yes, even Wemby by like 2 blocks. And so the analytics and what he's able to provide in that short purse, this is the guy that they went and traded for to be the backup center, and I think he's done well at that spot over the last week or two.
Okay, player number 2. I had very high expectation of this player, but also curiosity as to where they are. And while they show moments and flashes, I'm becoming increasingly concerned that their role may become even harder and harder to define or wedge in once the roster is in totality or next year moving forward.
I will say I kind of think Benedict Mathurin, but my gut says Jarris Walker.
Okay. It's actually,
so I'm going with Jarris, to be clear.
Both of those are perfectly sufficient and applicable answers. Isaiah Jackson is my guy there. Your thoughts?
Yeah, I think Isaiah is still trying to find his footing. My biggest concern with him has been foul trouble, and that's totally disrupted what he's been able to do on the floor throughout most of the season. I mean, it's almost a given, it feels like, that he has 2 fouls in the first 4 minutes. That's been his trend in these first 17 games or so. And he'll have some bright points, especially with some blocks underneath the basket. He's not a stretch guy, very different from Miles Turner in that way. While they both defend the rim, Isaiah's going to hover and hang around there, whereas Miles is going to venture out along the 3-point line. I've had that thirst for more, but I'm also giving him the grace of, guy just had surgery on this like 54 weeks ago.
And Scott, here's what, and it's totally unfair of me to go with this because, to your point, he had the Achilles, right? And so therefore it's a different requirement of that tendon in terms of what you're looking for the player to do athletically. But I look, and I know that every body is different. Literally every human body is different. But I'm looking at Isaiah Jackson and I'm using that in my mind, be it fair or not, as the barometer as to what to expect from the return of Tyrese Halliburton and his burst. And I know that all of that is unfair, but the human nature in me goes there. And for that reason, it does seem to me at this point that Isaiah Jackson has yet to get back to 90% of what he was before of his athleticism. But is that too critical of me because of the mentions that I said beforehand about precedent of what I'm looking for?
I think I would disagree on. I think he looks better than expected athletically, too. Absolutely. But I wonder about the mental aspect.
Right.
Right. That mental hurdle to clear, and do you worry about every step, those sort of things, in addition to being asked to do a lot more on the floor and play against the best opposing center now. Before, you're going against the backup, sometimes a third guy, depending on where you fall in the rotation. So now he's had to elevate his game while his injury comes with it. I haven't been worried about the burst or athleticism or leaping ability to go get a rebound as much as his availability or playing within the flow of the offense or being in the right positions.
Okay, now let's go to Mathurin. Scott, I know it's a tired subject to a great extent. But with that said, is Ben Mathurin on this roster next year?
Hard to prognosticate here. I would say yes at this point right now.
Okay.
I would. Only because what does this team need? They need some scoring. They need that dog, that fight, the guy that's as competitive as hell. And he's probably the number one competitor on this bunch. Some would say, and this isn't him, but it's kind of in a different light, you need like one little crazy, on that roster for a
Reggie Miller always said
team.
That, right? Didn't Reggie Miller always say every team needs a little crazy?
Yeah, and he's by no means crazy. He's just in his own world. Maybe is the best way to say it sometimes. And I do think you kind of need that. The guy that, all right, whatever, I don't care, we're down 19. We're going to go make a run in this third quarter. All that's to say, it all depends, obviously, on his financial value, how much it's going to put the Pacers over the tax. But if we're just talking strictly basketball, they need a guy like Benedict Mathurin. I'd be good with that.
Scott, will it matter where the Pacers selecting the upcoming draft on a decision in Mathurin? Because, in my opinion, if you have a top 3 pick and you have the option of taking Darren Peterson or AJ Dibansta or whatever the kid's name is from BYU, both those guys play the same spot as Mathurin. Could that influence their decision at all? And I know we're way ways away from that, but I think that's probably something as well to monitor going forward.
Right, yeah. As I wrote yesterday, I'd caution everybody against most of this conversations for like one more month. Then I think we'll have a much bigger picture, a clearer picture of where things are going. I would simply say this, Eddie. I think it's going to come down more than anything, less about overlap and more about financial implications. If it's going to cost you $40 million a year, Pacers simply probably cannot afford that and put a sustainable team on the roster. The way in which they play, the style of play, the pace, the pressuring full court, they need depth over top-line talent. And so for that reason, I think you would have to consider what you have and be able to keep the pieces that you have. Now, if he doesn't have a all-star level, all-NBA type season and he doesn't command a max or something close to a max contract and you can work with him, then, yeah, I don't see why you don't bring him back, because also you can always figure it out later. That's what I go for teams, for players. Sign the contract, get what you want, and then if it doesn't work, that's fine. Sometimes that happens. You figure out a deal later.
Scott Agness is our guest. Fieldhouse Files is where you can read his work. Pacers last night dropping one to Detroit. Scott, I was asked this yesterday. See if your answer jives with me. How far into the year do they go before they then, if they are on the same trajectory from both the health standpoint and a record standpoint, how far in do they go before they definitively make the decision amongst the Pacers brass, okay, this is indeed the rebuild year, and we're going to go with a Spurs strategy of seeing what we can get draft-wise? I'm not saying tank, but just accepting the reality.
Yeah, well, their current reality is they haven't had as many healthy bodies to even put guys out there. Now that's changing, fortunately, a little bit, and they should get about 3 more players back by next month is what they're hoping for with that front. To me, I think you're looking at 6 weeks, basically the turn of the new year in January. Okay. Initial conversations about what's out there and draft prospects and all that. That'll usually happen at the G League Winter Showcase, which is in December, mid-December, right before Christmas. That's when you start to have trade conversations with teams. That's where the first discussions might even happen. Then you get into January, and we saw last year, interestingly enough, trades went earlier than usual. But if you're making deals, if you're looking more futuristic, and by January, then I think we absolutely can start having a conversation of this team could sneak in the playoffs, or this just isn't their year. They need rest. They need to be forward thinking. But I think it's premature right now. I say we'll have a really good clear indicator by mid-December, and I think a decision could be made by, say, January. But either way, players aren't going to care. Guys like Matherin, he's in a contract year, so he's going to want to play, I can tell you that.
Hey, have you been to any other Boom games aside from the opener where I saw you?
I did. I was there Sunday afternoon for their first win of the season.
So I'm curious of this. What has been, because that first night, and for those that are unfamiliar, the Noblesville Boom, they are playing in the, what's it called? Something Innovative Mile? Is that
the arena at Innovation Mile.
Okay, and that's up in Noblesville. It is about, if I had to guesstimate it, 60% the size of the Fishers Event Center. Nice venue, really nice venue. Not a bad seat in the house. But that first night, it was packed. I mean, there was not a seat to be had, and I'm curious how sustainable that is. How was the crowd on a Sunday?
On that Sunday was not very good, but look, you're going against the behemoth of the NFL,
right.
and the Colts are playing the Chiefs in one of the best games of the year that we would have known 3 months ago. So that's a really hard thing to go against there. But here's one to look forward to perhaps this upcoming Sunday, Jake. It's the Wisconsin Herd. Every IU fan should be there. Victor Oladipo presumably will be playing in that one, so that should be a good test. And what was cool for the team over the weekend is they had finally got their two-ways, some of them to play. Talon Peter, Ray J. Dennis, both played, but I would say the crowd of 3,400 seats, it was probably 1,500 for that afternoon.
I mean, that's still not terrible, but it's better than what they were getting probably in Fort Wayne. And I haven't looked, Scott, how has Oladipo done? I know that he really, as I understand it, Oladipo, I mean, obviously, based on the fact that he's playing in the G League, that tells you something in terms of his desire to get back. He really wants to prove that he can still play, but how has he looked?
Yeah, I've watched a handful of the games, and there's some bright moments where he'll go on runs, score 8-10 points in a row, and then I saw a couple highlights the other day where shot a three from the top of the arc and airballed, underneath. So I would say right now, it's kind of a mixed bag in what he's producing there, but it's averaging, looks like 13 points, 5 rebounds per game, 4 assists. And just trying to make the most of this opportunity for a Herd team that has not been very good.
The guy that has really impressed me with the Boom, and you and I talked about it when we were there, I really liked just his overall athleticism. I thought he shot the ball well. I think defensively is going to be the weakness that's going to hold him back, but that's Kyle Guy out of Lawrence Central, who obviously played with Jay Huff at Virginia. He's looked good to me. How did he look when you saw him?
Yeah, Kyle Guy's been good. So good that, in fact, he was named to the USA basketball qualifying team for the World Cup. There's only 12 guys on that bunch, including former Pacer Torrey Craig, for example. So for a guy that, by the way, hasn't played for a year and a half, has been coaching to get back in to thus far, excluding the G League guys who were not really available, and the Pacers the Boom are also down their 2 top centers, which has made things complicated. The roster's been tightened to basically 8 guys. Kyle Guy's been the standout performer in it, no doubt. I think the interesting development in all this that's been helpful for Coach Tom Hankins is Kyle Guy can bridge the gap there with a whole new team. There's not one player back from last season. Is he can kind of play his coaching role and be the player out on the floor as a point guard as such. So I think what he's done has exceeded all expectations coming back to play.
Scott, what's new up and coming at Fieldhouse Files?
Yeah, I covered a big notebook yesterday from Pacers. I'll do the same thing with Fever today, as we saw Caitlin Clark being named to the national team training camp that will be participating in December. That'll be her first basketball since July. And then we'll be looking ahead to this homestand that the Pacers have on tap coming up.
All right, appreciate it, Scott. We'll talk to you soon. Happy Thanksgiving to you.
Yeah, happy Thanksgiving, guys.
Scott Agness joining us from Fieldhouse Files. That homestand upcoming, by the way. Next week, you've got for the Pacers, Detroit, Washington, Chicago, all going to be Detroit was obviously last night. Washington, Chicago coming up end of the week, and then Monday as well. They got Cleveland, Wednesday of next week, Denver, all here. Games coming up on Thanksgiving Day. Eddie, I'm going to give you the game, and I want you to tell me which of the 3 you would list as the turkey game. The game that is like, when I say the turkey game, the game that's like the dud matchup, okay?
Hold on real quick. Need to pull up our turkey gobble.
Okay. So here are the games in terms of how they slot for Thursday. And then I'll throw in the Friday game as well, because there is a Friday game, okay?
Is there 1 or is there 2?
There's 1 on Friday. Here, so that you're picking one turkey game amongst them. I will read them all off, and then we'll go back. I will read them again, and we'll see which one you decide is the turkey game. The games are as follows on Thanksgiving Day. You've got the Green Bay Packers in Detroit to take on the Lions. That is a 1 o'clock kick on Fox. You've got the Kansas City Chiefs that we just saw beat the Colts. They are going to be in Dallas for the typical Thanksgiving game in Dallas. That is a 4:30 game on CBS. Seems odd not seeing the Cowboys on Fox on Thanksgiving, to be honest with you.
Right.
You've got Cincinnati and Baltimore to take on the Ravens in Baltimore. That is the 8:20 game on NBC on Thanksgiving night. And then on Friday, it is the Bears of Chicago in Philadelphia to take on the Eagles. That is a 3 o'clock prime video game. So with that, I will give you the game. You tell me which one, when you are ready, is your turkey game. Green Bay at Detroit.
Now, can I have a clarification here?
Mm-hmm.
Turkey game being the creme de la creme, the game that I have to be on the couch.
Turkey game being
is...
that it's a turkey. It's the bad game.
Okay.
Green Bay at Detroit. Kansas City at Dallas.
I'm just kidding.
Cincinnati at Baltimore. Chicago at Philly. So you're saying Cincinnati and Baltimore just because of, even though Joe Burrow's back?
Yes, because I want to see if the Bears are for real. This is a good test for them on Friday night against Philly.
It is.
You know, they're kind of in that same conversation as like the Colts, the Patriots,
the Broncos.
The Broncos.
Yeah.
Like they're 8-3, but like they just picked up their first win last week. Did Chicago against a team over 500.
Did you know that Ben Franklin wanted the turkey to be the national bird?
No.
And did you know that turkeys, God loved them. I don't know if you knew this or not, Eddie. Can you look up for me if this is fact or fiction? Can you look up for me that whether or not it's fact or fiction that turkeys, they have a lack of intellect, intuition. They're not the sharpest tool in the shed. And as a result, that turkeys, if you rain water down from above them, they can drown because they try to drink the water and they're not capable of doing so, and it drowns them.
Turkeys are often perceived as having a lack of intellect, but this is a misconception.
Oh, okay.
Wild turkeys exhibit impressive cognitive abilities, including problem-solving skills, memory retention, and social intelligence.
Does it mention anything about water? Does it mention anything about whether or not they drown them by spraying water from up above?
No.
That would be... It would seem as though that myth would be debunked by their problem-solving skills. I don't know if you know this or not, but oftentimes, perhaps they're actually all doing Wordle.
So domestic turkeys may show less intelligence due to their upbringing. Wild turkeys demonstrate sophisticated behaviors.
Wild turkeys drink a lot. I do know that.
They possess a level of cognitive capacity.
Really?
Overall, turkeys, they're not dumb. They are intelligent creatures with complex behaviors and emotional intelligence.
So they don't really drown? Can you put in turkeys drowning? Look that up. See if am I the only person that has heard this theory on turkeys?
Turkeys do not drown themselves.
But it's been out there that they do.
It's a myth.
It is a myth? You know why?
Experts, including Adam Butler from the Mississippi Department of Wildlife, confirmed that there are no documented cases of turkeys drowning themselves.
Well, it doesn't rain in Mississippi. What would Adam know? I shouldn't say that. They have like hurricanes that come through there. So Adam says that? Can we get Adam on the show? Dispel some of these turkey myths? What sort of domesticated... I like to know this when it says domesticated turkeys. What does that mean exactly? Are there people that have turkey pets?
Yes. Like you have them on a farm?
Okay, that's not a pet, though. I guess that is... I mean, I think of domesticated as meaning a pet, but that obviously would be a farm-raised turkey is more a domesticated turkey than a wild turkey, right? Not like they're coming inside the house and sitting on the couch, right? That's what I think of. Like a cat is domesticated. A dog is a domesticated animal. Are cows domesticated? Are pigs domesticated? I guess somewhat, right? I can tell you're still looking up turkey facts.
No.
Am I correct that Ben Franklin wanted to have the turkey as the national bird? Can you look that up?
Yes, cows are domesticated.
Are they?
Yeah.
You know why? There's no such thing as a wild cow. You ever been driving out in the middle of nowhere and you're like, oh my gosh, cow? Ever?
No, not like Twister.
Right. Like where are wild, like any animal you could think of, there's some sort of origin where like, well, yeah, they come from the streets of such and such. Not cows, right? Cows, I guess, in that regard, are smart. They're just hanging out in houses.
Benjamin Franklin did not want the turkey as a
That
national
is
bird.
malarkey. What are you reading? Keep going.
The myth that he proposed a turkey instead of a bald eagle stems from a letter he wrote in 1784 where he criticized the bald eagle's character and suggested the turkey as a more respectable symbol.
Character.
However, this letter was
he got a bald eagle that borrowed money and didn't pay him back? What are you talking about character?
However,
what was Ben Franklin up to?
However, this letter was never.
Ben Franklin went over to France and gotten all kinds of problems. Now he's coming back and he's judging the character of a bald eagle?
This letter was never intended as a serious proposal for the national bird, and the bald eagle was officially chosen as the emblem of the United States.
What? Ben Franklin's coming back. He's got like half of France that he's gotten to know, and he comes back and he's questioning the character of a bald eagle. What in the world is that all about?
Hold on. We have a text on the text line.
Is it Sam the bald eagle?
No, we have a text on the text line. That's all.
Okay.
I just got to find something real quick.
We have a text on the text line at 239-1070, correct?
Yeah.
Is it about the character of eagles?
No.
Okay.
It's about turkeys.
And it says what?
Hold on.
You know, the Bears and the Philadelphia game on Friday night is going to be a good game because it's going to be a true test of the character of Philadelphia and the Eagles. Got to test the character of Eagles.
All right, here you go, listener. You got what you wish for.
Yes! Which listener do we have there?
It was James. He said, he said, I want to hear my winning turkey gobble.
Let's
just
hear James one more time.
Early.
Outstanding from James. Stephen Holder will save us in just over 30, and Trey Essex an hour from now. Walked around the corner today in the building, stunned me a little bit because not only do we have a situation, we've got a kind of a breaking news situation down in our parking garage, do we not, Eddie? Floating Pooh's made it so that we can't park in P1, right? In our building?
P2, but yes.
Huh?
P2, but yeah.
That's right, P2, sorry. Two floors below the ground. So I had to park upstairs, which I don't usually park upstairs because, the bougie folks park downstairs. And then I did, and I rounded the corner, and I was very startled, you can imagine, when I see a guy walking around dressed like a Greyhound. And I realize it's because you're fired up for your alma mater, right?
That's right.
Saturday at Key Stadium on the near south side of Indianapolis, UIndy will be hosting the college football playoff after beating Truman State in the first round of their playoffs 57-14. They have their first playoff win since 2018. It is the third all-time, and the Division II playoffs now will be right on the UIndy campus. And the guy that has guided the Hounds to 10 straight wins joins us now on the Java House Peel and Port guest line. Chris Keevers is the head coach for UIndy. Coach, how are you?
I'm doing well. How you doing?
You know what? I can't complain. I love this time of year, and football is so much fun. I mean, in general, but this time of year in particular, because now is when you're getting down to the brass tacks, right? And for you guys, it has been really a dream season. And I want to begin by talking about your quarterback play, because you've got a guy in Gavin Sukup that is not just leading you guys, Coach, but let's be real. This is legitimately a D, for lack of a better phrase, I'll put it this way. I mean, the Harlan Hill Award, which is basically the D2 Heisman, right? This is a guy that has played at a nationally historic level for you guys. What is it about his leadership that has most impressed you this season?
Well, he's a great team guy, and then everybody respects him because of the way he plays. He's works at it harder than everybody else. He's always in the office. If he's not in class, he's in the office. He's great with everybody on the team, and then he's a strong arm, athletic. I mean, he's the real deal. I mean, he's been the MVP of our league the last 2 years, last 3 years, and just came in yesterday. And I mean, he's the reason why we're sitting 110 in a row. There's no question.
You get set now for, and this is big, right? It's big for your program. It's big for your university. It's big for the south side of Indy to have the college football playoff coming right here to your home stadium. And you've got a team coming in Minnesota State that I'm going to assume, now I could be wrong in this, Coach, but is it a little bit like looking in the mirror just because you are so familiar? I don't know about their style of play, but the coaching aspect of it, you've got some familiarity on the other sideline.
Yeah, I mean, they're a disciplined team. I mean, they're good on special teams. They're physical, they tackle. Those are the similarities. They do run they run the ball a lot more than we do. They throw it about 20 times a game. So there's there's a lot of similarities in the programs, but in terms of our offensive philosophy, their quarterback is a runner who throws it, he'll throw it, but not as much. Where our guy is more of a thrower. He'll run, but he's more of a thrower.
Chris Keevers is my guest, Java House Peel and Port guest line. Coach, I'm always fascinated by this. When you get to a point in the year where your guys are getting a chance to do things that are profiling your university, your athletic department, your program, they're doing some things that are starting to get into new territory for UIndy football. You want them to know and be aware of and conscientious of the history that is there in the balance for them. But at the same time, you also want to make sure that they know that it's just another game, if that makes sense. Or, you know what I mean? Like, how do you balance the let's do what we do, but let's be aware of what we're doing?
Are you sitting in my meetings? Do what we do is always what I say. And it's great. We talk about it all the time. We're going to do what we do. Our practice schedules haven't changed. Our approach hasn't changed. We are doing what we do. But the games do mean we're in the Sweet 16. We can get to the Final 8 but we're going to do it doing what we do. I mean, we haven't changed our approach. We haven't changed how we're doing things during the week. If you have a great week of practice, you're going to play well on Saturday, and that's how we do things.
What I love about it, Coach, is you're doing all of this. You do what you do, and you're doing it with, and it's great. I mean, look, I know that Gavin, if I'm not mistaken, your quarterback is, I think, a native of Nebraska, right? And somebody that started elsewhere and then comes to UIndy. But at the same time, what I love about the fact that it's UIndy is, and you're going to go get players no matter where. I get it. If a kid wants to come play for you and he can play, you're going to take him. But I do love the fact that you have gotten this year key contributions from a number of guys that are playing right in their own backyard, whose parents can come right out, their high school coach can come right out, and you've been able to recruit right here within the Marion County area. What key contributors do you look towards that are Indy guys?
You know, we've got some great ones this year. I mean, Danny Royster from Lawrence North's a defensive end. Jalen Wilson's a linebacker from Brownsburg. Alvin Contreras is outside linebacker from Ben Davis. Grant Ray's a guard from Roncalli. And then Garrett Sherrill's a running back from Brownsburg. Those guys are all first-team all-conference players for us. You know, we know them so well. We see them practice. We see them work out. We see them at camps. That's what the wonderful thing about when you're out and recruiting in Indianapolis. We know the kids so well before we even start the recruiting process. So, you know, you get a better evaluation. You get to know them a lot better, and you get to see them. You get to see them play on Friday nights. Our guys go out to the games every Friday night. We get to see those guys. It's a huge advantage because football in Indianapolis is dynamite.
You know, we're in November, about to turn into December, right? Your goal, obviously, is to continue playing into December. When you look at a calendar, Coach, over the course of the year, what's the most important month that sets the foundation, plants the seed for November, December?
Oh, you know, I'd probably say February. I mean, that's when we start lifting weights and creating our team for the next year and running our guys in the mornings. And that's when you build the foundation. You know, we've got a great strength coach. Steve Barrick is dynamite, and he gets our guys ready. But we, in February and March, we really work hard and we make a commitment and we run in the mornings, and it's tough. You know, it's still old school football. So that's kind of when you build the foundation, the toughness of your team. And then every month after that, I mean, it doesn't stop. It's 12 months. You know, I tell our guys when we recruit them, you know, if you like to work, you'd love to come here because we're going to work 12 months out of the year. We don't take time off.
When you do what you do, what point in the year, if at all, I mean, maybe doing what you do is constantly evolving. Maybe that's part of what you do, right? But what point in the year do you, Chris Keevers at UIndy, look at the season and say it's too late to introduce a new wrinkle? If there's if for example, at Minnesota State, if you look at what their defensive coordinator, Todd Taylor, who I think you know, what he's drawing up for them, if you find something that you think you can take advantage of, but it's something that you guys have not done, is there a danger there, or do you simply say, we're going to stick with this and that's it? When do you quit becoming a chameleon?
Well, every week you've got to put in a new wrinkle. I mean, you got to. I mean, that's how you survive. I mean, you can't. There is the do what you do, but when we're working and putting in the game plan, we're going to add wrinkles against things, certain sets we like again. So, you know, it's always changing, and you know, you've got in this game, you've got to adjust and you've got to try new things because people are so good at looking at what you do and stopping what you do. So you better have some different wrinkles. And my man Todd Taylor and I worked together for 2 years here at the University of Indianapolis, and I love Todd Taylor. I still talk to him probably about once a month.
So I assume this month is one that you just decided you're not going to talk, right?
I have not talked to Todd.
Is that right? He's not in the meetings, is what you're getting at, right?
There's no question.
No, you know, the beauty of it, though, is that's how football is, right? You get – there's so much crossover and there's so much cross-pollination amongst guys. And sometimes you don't know in terms of – I want to go back to roster, Coach. Sometimes you don't know about guys until they're truly in the battle and they're in the trench, right? And you can actually look at – and I'm assuming, you tell me if I'm wrong, but from a coaching standpoint, there are probably times where there are players that you underestimated and there might be players that you overestimated, right? Is there a particular guy that you can look towards and say, that was the player that forced me, Chris Keevers, the coach, to become more aware of what we need to do to, like, develop guys or assess guys and et cetera?
Well, we had DeBrince Johnson as a kid from Kentucky, and DeBrince was, you know, special teams contributor a little bit last year, and he just keeps getting better. But, you know, you didn't know how good he was going to be. And then, you know, halfway through the season, he's our starting corner, and he's making plays, and he's doing a great job. And I underestimated him. Had no idea he was this good. But you never do until you put him out there,
right.
and you find out. And he's been fantastic. He's an engineering student. He's brilliant. He's a hard worker, and that's why he keeps getting better. He comes out and works his tail off and keeps getting better. And he was a key contributor to our playoff game, and he was not much of a factor week one. I promise you.
I assume that and I know that you're wrapped up in your own deal, right? But I would assume that you get a chance to watch the Colts, correct? Is that a fair statement?
I don't. We work on Sundays. I never get to see them.
Okay.
Sunday's our big work day. We break it down in the morning.
I get it because you're coming off a game day, right? And you're looking at it.
Yeah,
but that
we don't
said,
get to watch.
So, the Colts got a guy in Ashton Dulin. Ashton Dulin's a guy that has been there for a couple of seasons now. Right now he's actually banged up, but he's a special teams guy. He's a gunner on special teams that's kind of their fifth, sixth receiver. And then whenever there's some sort of an attrition coach where the Colts need somebody to step into that slot, Ashton Dulin does it, and invariably within like 5 plays of being on the floor, he makes a play. And I've never, to my knowledge, seen Ashton Dulin talk about his minutes, talk about his reps. He just goes out and does what is asked of him and lets everything else come to form. And to me, sometimes that guy is as valuable on a roster as your quarterback that is up for national awards. Now, is that just me romanticizing that from afar?
No, I mean, those guys are so important because they're great team guys. And they're plug-and-play guys. You can plug and play anywhere. And that's what DeBrince was. He played safety. He played corner. He played gunner on punt. He played, he was on kickoff. He's kickoff return. He was a plug-and-play guy, and all of a sudden, every time you put him in different spots, he keeps getting better. So, and then finally, you're like, okay, let's just put him in on defense. And he played, there. So those guys help you win. There's no question. And they're fun to be around. And, that guy's going to stick around the league. He'll play because every time he gets an opportunity, he does something well.
Right. And a guy like that you don't have to massage it, right? You know it's there and that's it. I mean, being a good teammate sometimes will extend, and I think there's a lesson for all of us in that, no matter what line of work you're in. Doesn't have to be football in particular. Chris Keevers, head coach, UIndy, 2:00, Key Stadium. That is on the near south side of Indianapolis for UIndy as they take on Minnesota State in the college football playoff. Coach, we certainly wish you the best of luck. Would love to have you back on, man, and hope things go well for you on Saturday.
Really enjoy it. Can't thank you enough for getting me on, and nice talking with you. I'll see you later.
Appreciate it. Chris Keevers, the head coach at UIndy. Eddie, you going to be able to make it down to the game?
I might be able to. I have nothing going on Saturday afternoon.
Look at you.
I may have to leave.
Did you say it's supposed to snow?
Sunday. Snow in the forecast on Sunday.
Thursday's going to be chilly for the drumstick dash, right?
I'm not sure.
I think that's right, but so the Colts game, snow, roof closed, right? Can we go ahead and declare that?
I would probably guess the roof would be closed, yes.
How certain are you?
85% certain.
I have an observation about the Pacers game that Pat Boylan and I are becoming increasingly concerned about.
A little chilly on Saturday as well. Chance of snow both Saturday and Sunday.
38, high of 38, right?
Yeah, both days.
Is that right?
Saturday and Sunday.
Look at the big brain on this. I mean, honestly, do you ever just thank yourself that you have access to this Nostradamus?
No.
That's incredible that I knew that off the top of my head. You know what drives me nuts, by the way? This happened to me the other day. I got burnt by this. Do you ever have this? How often do you look at the weather app on your phone?
Frequently.
Do you ever have this where you look at something and you go, oh, gosh, well, I was going to plan on that for Saturday, but I'm not saying this weekend in general, generically speaking. Yeah, we were going to do that, but I looked at it, and 80% chance of rain on Saturday. So let's not plan on anything.
Well, that's been me for the last 3 weeks.
Okay, and then you know what happens? So it rains. So what they're saying is it's supposed to rain between midnight and 1:30 a.m., and so therefore that it says 80% chance of rain. That doesn't count. That's Friday night. That's not even Saturday. It ain't Saturday till you're waking up, right?
True.
That doesn't count. So you go to bed at 4. You get up at 11, bright and sunny outside. Oh, yeah, it rained overnight. Oh, come on, that doesn't count. But Pat Boylan and I have an increasing concern about Pacer games that I'll tell you about next. When I was discussing Jay Edwards, I should have also mentioned that one of the all-time greats at Purdue, Jerron Cornell, also being inducted into the Indiana Basketball Hall of Fame. And the late Jerron Cornell, but he was a fabulous player, smooth as could be, out of South Bend Clay. And another that will be brought in. And again, Jay Edwards, Rick Fox, Ed Schilling, among others who have been named there. Okay, so last night I'm at the Pacer game.
Were you with Shannon?
I was not.
Was it your wife then?
It's
you
funny.
You finally take her to one of those?
I went with my buddy Reggie
Miller?
And not Reggie Miller. And Reggie did ask me, he said, by the way, I know that Shannon, these are her seats, and thank you for inviting me. What does your wife think of that? He did ask me that. Not Reggie Bush either. But I've noticed an increasing trend at Pacer games. And I think this is a trend I won't say epidemic within the NBA, but it's an increasing trend that I've noticed.
Is it the national anthem? Is this what you're talking about?
The national anthem in the jQuery rule, which will become the case when I become the mayor, after we put all of the scooters into the White River and then the pedal bars go into the canal, or vice versa. Interchangeable platform there. And now I see that they're talking about like a sportsbook casino in Indy, and I'm like, hello, query mayoral campaign. They're ripping me off. What next? You're going to dip into my trademark of why not Indiana? Union Station should be a sportsbook casino that then will fund the largest and most elaborate air Metrolink system throughout the Midwest in Indianapolis, connecting all areas of the city, and then the surplus of money will go into Indianapolis public schools, but I digress. At the Pacer games now, at halftime, I typically sit and watch the halftime show.
Uh-huh.
In terms of the anthem, when I become the mayor, the first thing that I'm going to institute is that the anthem should always be done with no exception. No exception. The anthem should always be done by local schools' children's choirs.
Okay.
Always. Okay. There's nothing more delightful than like a third grade class coming out and doing the anthem.
Trying to hit the high note?
Yeah, I mean, it's a difficult song. And the best of the best can get lost in that song. What's that?
It's not a song.
Anthem. It's a difficult anthem. And the best of the best can get lost in the pitch and or the lyrics of said anthem. But I've noticed the halftime shows, and maybe this all started with Red Panda. And Red Panda's injury, thank goodness I believe she's on the mend. Okay,
she's back.
She's back from hibernation. But last night, they had this fella out there, big grin on his face, running around, and he's one of these guys that balances everything. Balances a bike on his chin, balances an ironing board on his forehead, balances a chainsaw on his elbow, all kinds of stuff, right?
How do you find out you can do this?
I have asked that question 1,000. Alcohol is your answer. I've asked that question, for example, with the girl that contorts herself and shoots a bow and arrow with her toes.
Well, Jake, I'm sure there's a different reason other than alcohol for that one.
Well, yeah, fair also. But what I've noticed is that what we're seeing now with the halftime shows, and credit to all of these people, don't get me wrong, but very seldomly now do it. Now, the bow and arrow girl, I think, is the exception to what I'm about to say. And then there's that one couple. It's a big
Slottick?
Well, now Slottick, I got no problem with, except for that he wears a tutu that's a little tight. It's getting a little snug.
Medium?
Yes. But he stacks the chairs. Slottick is another example of what I'm talking about. Slottick is the OG of the chair stack folk.
Mm-hmm.
There's a big Brutus-looking Paul Bunyan fella that used to do the chin stacking deal, the balancing act. What I'm getting at is now, all of a sudden, and it's not the Pacers. I'm not blaming the Pacers on this. I think this is NBA-wide. We're getting halftime show Timu. We're getting the replacement, the knockoffs of the original. I don't know if there's been like a halftime show holdout deal, a collective bargaining deal. I don't know what's going on. But when you go to it, you say to yourself, Quick Change is another one.
Mm-hmm.
And I realize that, unfortunately, one of those two is no longer with us. But Quick Change now, there's a new Quick Change folk. And a lot of this stuff, you're like, look, you've got to be the OG or none, right? Like, give me the original or none, because it's like Jamaican patties. Patties of Jamaica at 52nd and Aliceville, greatest place ever. Anywhere else you go, feels like a knockoff.
What am I making?
Have you not been to Jamaican patties?
No.
When we watch Shawshank, I'm going to get for you patties of Jamaica from 52nd and Aliceville. And Eddie, I got news for you. I'm going to change your life.
Okay.
Change your life.
Okay.
You will be a changed man. You'll come in the next day and you'll start noticing some changes going on in the body, and the voice will be a little deeper.
Okay.
Stephen Holder next. You know, the Colts years ago had a very promising, I think it was an outside linebacker, pass rusher named O'Brien Alston. O'Brien Alston was a bigger guy. He had been a late draft pick, if maybe not even undrafted. Was really good. And during a time when the Colts were desperate for any sort of stardom, O'Brien Alston kind of started to feel like he was showing that form. And then when they were playing the New York Jets, he was trying to tackle Freeman McNeil and tore his knee up, and it ended his career. Freeman McNeil actually went and visited him in the hospital because he felt so guilty about it, because O'Brien Alston was this rising star. And the DOC, who Eddie just played right there, he's like the O'Brien Alston of the late 80s, early 90s hip-hop. Because his album, No One Can Do It Better, is one of the all-time best of that era. And then shortly after it hit the mainstream, he was involved in a car accident that compromised his vocal cords, and then he strictly became a behind-the-scenes writer type guy. One of the best rising stars in the DOC. Outstanding pull there, Eddie Garrison. Joining us now on the Java House Peel and Pour guest line, he is not the DOC because he is more than the one-hit wonder. He is Stephen Holder from ESPN. Stephen, let's begin with this. We have not gotten into this a lot since the Colts game against Kansas City, and that is simply a roll call from a health standpoint. And there's one player in particular I want to ask you about, but before we do that, have we learned anything new or that we were unaware of either improvement or maybe downslide of guys coming out of that game at Arrowhead?
Well, the one, and you may have discussed this yesterday, I don't know, but the one I think that's notable is Ashton Doolin.
Yep.
And he might be out a bit. I think it's
hamstring, is that right?
Ankle or hamstring. I don't know. I'm having a senior moment. But he will miss some time, according to Shane Steichen. And look, they have, I think, enough receiver depth for the most part, even after trading A.D. Mitchell. But he was playing, clearly, consistent snaps at receiver. But I think where that really hurts them is special teams. And I'm just like everybody else, I might get up and, hit the restroom when it's time to punt and that kind of thing. But if you watch this team and you don't see the value and the contributions of Ashton Doolin in the kicking game, then you're not paying attention. So they have been, that's the one area of their team where they have been incredibly consistent all year long is special teams, and his loss will definitely hurt.
Do you believe Daniel Jones is 100% healthy?
He didn't look like it. I can only go by what I see because what I hear is not much. I've asked Shane Steichen every which way, up, down, left, right, and while no one has said, including Daniel, no one has said, I'm not hurt. The answer is he's fine. He's out there and he's good enough to play. That is two different things. And I asked Daniel after the game straight up, like, hey, man, are you okay? And I asked Shane Steichen yesterday, and the answer from Daniel was, hey, if you're good enough to be out there, you're out there, and I felt fine. Well, the eye test says something a little different. I'm not suggesting that he was, significantly encumbered by an injury. I'm not saying that. But I do think when you look at some of his issues on Sunday, number one, we saw him run out of bounds very casually. That is not Daniel Jones. He is not a run out of bounds casually kind of guy. If anything, the knock is like, hey, protect yourself, right? So that was notable, and he looked like he was running gingerly on that one scramble. That's number one. Number two, there were some throws where he was inaccurate. He definitely missed some throws in the fourth quarter in particular, and what we know about quarterbacks is that their lower body really does dictate the accuracy of their throws. So that's all I can tell you. I saw what I saw, and they say what they say, and that's all we got to go on.
Stephen, do you believe, and maybe there's an irresponsibility in even looking at it this way, but to put it in perspective, if Anthony Richardson was fully healthy and available, which he's not, I get that, but simply for the sake of the perspective, do you believe that if Anthony Richardson was fully healthy and available, that there would have been times in that game in Kansas City that perhaps they would have either, because of health or consistency, turned to him?
Good question. I think probably not, just because I think what Daniel's done this season would have been enough to buy him the credibility and the opportunity to handle those situations and finish it out. So, I mean, I don't think he was hurt enough where they would have taken him out of the game. What Shane Steichen values about Daniel Jones, I think more than anything, is his decision making and understanding and anticipation, all of those things, right? And that supersedes whatever might be going on with him physically. Now, that being said, I do think this is going to be an interesting moment for him going forward. And this is less about his injury and just more about Daniel specifically, because you have to make some plays. And what the thing that I always questioned about Daniel Jones, and I think this is still fair to have this conversation. I think he's done a fantastic job, has blown everybody's minds, right? We all agree. However, he has not been in a position where he's had to go out there and make a clutch play in the fourth quarter to win a game. That hasn't happened a lot because of the way they've played this year. They've been on the right end of a lot of lopsided games. So he's going to be put, I think, in some situations here down the stretch where he is going to have to go get it, and he's going to have to prove some things.
Stephen, if you took right now, and I'm going with each team's primary starter, okay? So like in Cincinnati, Joe Burrow. I know he has not been their starter this year because of injury, but, Joe Burrow, right? If you took right now in the NFL, for the sake of the discussion here, if every team in the NFL had to surrender their quarterback, give him up, and then the NFL was going to redraft, each team's lined up, 1 through 32, you draw a number out of a hat, that's where you're drafting, and you get to take one of the quarterbacks. Literally every quarterback becomes a free agent. Who's the last quarterback selected?
Oh, ooh, the last quarterback. That is tough. It's got to be. Let's think about this. It's got to be one of the worst teams in the NFL.
I mean, J.J. McCarthy.
The J.J. McCarthy. Oh my God! The fact that we're having this conversation is crazy, isn't it? I don't know. Dylan Gabriel might be in there somewhere. I don't know, but I don't know enough about the kid to be honest.
Justin Fields.
Yeah, J.J. McCarthy is definitely near the bottom for sure.
Okay,
Tyler Shuck.
Yeah, fair.
I mean, there are 4 or 5, right, that you could say.
Yeah.
Where does Daniel Jones get drafted?
I like this. I think somewhere in 10 to 15 is what I'd say.
Okay.
And here's the thing. I think the thing that's hard about Daniel Jones, and I know I'm going to sound like a hater when I say this, but I got to be honest, right? A lot of what you are seeing from Daniel Jones, I think at least, a lot of what you were seeing from Daniel Jones, a lot of it's him and being a good quarterback with good instincts, but a lot of it is Shane Steichen. So therefore, what happened on Sunday? I thought Shane Steichen didn't have his best day. So therefore, his quarterback did not also have his best day. So I don't know. And it's an impossible thing to quantify, but I think we have to acknowledge that's a reality here. There is a fair amount of what you are seeing from Daniel Jones is being engineered by Shane Steichen being really good at what he does.
Yeah, and that's where, Stephen, I felt like the relationship, and the word I've always used is symbiotic. The symbiotic relationship between Daniel Jones and Shane Steichen. They seem as though, and they feel like that couple that can finish each other's sentence, right?
Right.
And it seemed to me like for the first time, that cohesiveness between the two worked to a detriment, not because they weren't on the same page, but because Steichen went almost to a fault to the loyalty of continuing to push the button to try to get Daniel Jones on track in that game in Kansas City, and it came at the detriment of involving Jonathan Taylor. Is that a fair statement?
I think it's a fair question. Well, actually, do you mind if we do a little breaking news?
Eddie, if you could, please, the breaking news sound. This just in from Stephen Holder.
So the Colts are placing Ashton Dulin, who we just talked about, on injured reserve. So for the reasons I just outlined, receiver depth and special teams, big deal. I think a really big deal. So, I mean, if you look at Sunday and really recent games generally, he's had a huge effect on field position because he gets down there and he makes a tackle on a punt or a kickoff to pin the other team. And again, after the A.D. Mitchell trade, that puts them one wide receiver injury away from being in a really tough spot. So you're going to see them have to make a wide receiver move too, just for depth purposes. So anyway,
now,
I wanted
Eddie,
to get that out there.
You mentioned, Eddie, somebody that could suddenly be available. Before we get to yours, Eddie, Stephen, let me ask you this. Where do the Colts stand in terms of receiver depth on practice squad or internally, if you will?
Well, I mean, they have Laquan Treadwell, who they have activated him at times this year. I think he would be the next guy, more than likely. They also, a veteran guy who's played a lot and can play without much preparation. So they rely on him for that. They also have Anthony Gould, who you see on special teams.
Right.
He could be an option. He's more of a slot receiver, I think. At least he looks and feels like more of a slot option, but they may be able to find a role for him. So those are the two guys, I think, who immediately come into play. Those two guys.
Eddie, you mentioned one that you noticed yesterday, right, in the news.
Yeah, this was a guy who was being shopped throughout the trade deadline, and ultimately they part ways between the New Orleans Saints and Brandon Cooks. Could they possibly kick the tires on adding a veteran like Cooks into the rotation, Stephen?
Well, I mean, I could see him taking a look at it. It's a good question. I think he is also a little more of a slot option, which is not what they necessarily need, but he's been around and played enough football. I think he can play just about anywhere. Is he still the same guy at 30 plus years old? He was a speed guy or has been a speed guy for much of his career. Probably not, but can he give you good snaps? Oh, 100%. I'm sure he could. So, I think you've got to at least consider what your options are there. And I wouldn't be surprised if they work out some receivers here in the next, week or so.
Stephen, I talked about this yesterday, okay, and I get confused by this. So you got DEFCON 5, DEFCON 4, DEFCON 3, 2, and 1.
I don't know the answer to this, but go ahead.
Okay. So I believe, I always thought that the higher the number, the more trouble you're in, right?
Right, like hurricanes.
Right. Correct, right? So correct. Like a Cat 5 hurricane is a bad deal. Cat 1, you're like, man,
get out of town.
It's the other way around, apparently, on this. So the DEFCON 1 means, break out your Fauci mask, right? Because the gas is coming. Okay, so with that said, this particular, if you look at the Colts' schedule now, with Houston twice, with Jacksonville twice, San Francisco and Seattle, the DEFCON in terms of where they are health-wise and the footing that they have going into these last 6 games is what? We're at DEFCON what right now?
1 through 5, right? So
one being, holy cow, the bus broke down in Pittsburgh and half the roster can't make it. What's that?
5 to 1, I guess, is what you're saying.
Correct.
I would say a 3, which I think is, sit up straight and pay attention. Because here's why. I don't think we can minimize this. This team, it sounds like I'm penalizing them for being good, but I'm not. I'm just saying this team hasn't been on the ropes all year, at all. They have had a charmed season, and I'm not one of those people they played an easy schedule. I'm not saying that. I'm saying they played so great that they weren't having to even play starters in some of their fourth quarters. Okay, they certainly haven't lost 2 out of 3 before now, or lost much at all. So we haven't seen this team with its back to the wall at all this season. There has been an entirely happy-go-lucky attitude in the entire building because there's been so little stress. So
do you notice that changing at all? Does the happy-go-lucky feeling in the building seem to have any sort of pucker at all?
I think this week will tell us. When we get back in the building tomorrow, I will be looking for that. I will say that up to this point, no. But the Charvarius Ward, I thought what he said in the locker room on Sunday was really appropriate. He said, I think we needed this game. He said, we haven't really been tested. And he's like, we needed this in terms of like, they didn't need to lose, but he's like, this is a wake-up call for us. Like, like we better get it together. We can't afford to kind of sleepwalk through this. And I don't think he was suggesting they weren't taking it seriously, but I think what he's trying to say is like, all right, they have our attention now. And I think he was trying to say, look, this is going to be a really big stretch run for us, and we have to be locked in. And I agree with that. I totally agree, and I think it's going to be a big test and will reveal a lot about this team.
Charvarius Ward, by the way, Stephen, I thought Stephen Holder is my guest. Java House Peel and Pour guest line is where you are hearing him, ESPN.com, where you both see his work and then read it as well. You see him on ESPN. Stephen, I thought that Charvarius Ward was almost surprisingly candid about the severity of his second concussion and the challenges that he had in getting himself back out onto the field. And maybe it's because of that I then, as I was watching him, especially late in that game against Kansas City, began to wonder whether or not he was, in fact, compromised in terms of his ability out there. I don't mean long-term. I just mean in that moment. Or was that simply a fatigue issue? Is there a concern there?
No, I don't think so. I mean, he talked about the sort of blindside hit that he took, and he was down for a long time. He said that was more of his chest and his sternum, but he definitely was. I think in that moment he was kind of like, "Am I okay?" Which I think speaks to the fact that he just went through a lot, And I think when he got up and he got all his faculties together, he realized, okay, I'm fine, but I just got, the hell knocked out of me in my chest, So, yeah, I think he was fine. I do think the fatigue was a problem. It was also the other thing that happened there is it's not just fatigue. It's also fatigue against a quarterback who prolongs every freaking play. So those 90 snaps probably feel like 120 snaps against Patrick Mahomes. That's the one thing. I said this with JMB yesterday. We also got to give this guy his due. Patrick Mahomes, he is one of one. You have never seen a quarterback like Patrick Mahomes. I'm not saying he's the greatest. We're not getting into that debate. That's ice cream flavors, right? You decide that on your own. But I will tell you, he's the most unique quarterback I've ever seen in my life. That guy, when the play breaks down, he's like, okay, now this is my time.
Yeah, he's a chaos agent. That's what I said. Like it's when chaos is flying around him, that's where he's at his best, right?
He's like, yes, now I am in my element. It's time to go to work. And you try defending those guys with that quarterback running away from your defensive line. Look, those guys did the best they could up front. I mean, they chased the hell out of him, but he is so unfazed by it. It's almost funny to watch it. It's like I feel sorry for people. Listen, anybody who had any illusions that this team was out of it, Patrick Mahomes was like, watch this. And I'm just telling you, he can single-handedly change any game, any day of the week, under any circumstance, period. That's the lesson I took away from that game.
Top 5 ice cream flavors, go.
Oh, my God. So I actually like cookies and cream for some reason. I don't know why.
Okay.
I'm not saying it's like number one, but, listen, you can't – I'm 49 years old, so vanilla, okay? Come on.
Okay. All right.
I mean, well, I was raised on Neapolitan. That's all my dad would ever buy. So I would like scrape all the vanilla out and leave the rest for everybody else. Let's see. Rocky Road, that's different, right, than cookies and cream.
It is.
Yeah. Okay.
Do people still buy the square box of ice cream, or does everybody just buy the round Ben & Jerry's type tub?
I haven't seen one in forever now that you think about it.
Mm-hmm.
Not now that I think about it. Yeah, man. Breyer's Neapolitan. My dad was a creature of habit, man. He probably still buys it now.
Eddie?
What
about yours? Sorry, Steve. What about yours, Eddie?
Mint chip.
Mint chocolate chip. Yep. Okay.
Reese's or like peanut butter cup of some capacity.
Okay. Peanut butter and
vanilla.
You going vanilla also?
I like strawberry.
I didn't know, Stephen, to be honest with you, that people actually bought the Neapolitan. I mean, I'm glad.
Well, I mean,
I'm glad your dad's the
my dad did.
Okay. And
I don't know anybody else that has.
Somebody ate the strawberry part of it? Because it would seem like there would just be one big stripe of the strawberry left. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I think he liked strawberry and chocolate or something. I think that's what was going on there. I was never a chocolate fan. I mean, are either of you a chocolate ice cream guy?
No. It's too rich for me.
Yeah. That's like, I just eat a freaking Snickers. Okay?
Yeah.
Or a
That's
Hershey
fair.
bar.
That's fair.
Yeah. So I never understood that. It never worked for me.
How about
so I'm
butter
glad
pecan?
I'm on the same page.
Are you down with the butter pecan?
Yeah, I will do butter pecan. In fact, that was like our other option. If my dad didn't buy Neapolitan, he bought butter pecan. So is it pecan or pecan? But anyhow, we can have that conversation later. But because I was also raised on that, it's like, nostalgic for me. So yeah.
If you watch When Harry Met Sally, it's pecan pie, by the way. So it is pecan. Houston, what challenges do they present other than a stout defense? And I guess a piggyback on that, Stephen, is this. If we're doing sports talk radio in Houston right now, right? Eddie, do we know the name of the midday show in Houston? It's probably something like, Bucky in the Bowl or something like that.
Look.
Timmy and Toro, something like that. If you're doing that, are you having the discussion at all as to whether or not it's behooved them to go back to C.J. Stroud?
No, I mean, no. I think, frankly, the last couple of years, he has played well in spite of a team, I think, that was compromised in many ways. So no, I give him the benefit of the doubt. But I don't disagree that the optics are bad, right? Like they certainly found something on offense the last few weeks. There's no question about that. He's going to get the benefit of the doubt. He's the franchise guy. I don't think you can take that drastic of a move based on a small sample size like that.
Okay.
But I do think you need to figure out why that happened and if you can tap into it with him.
So before we let you go, Stephen, in our quarterback redraft game here, the quarterbacks that the Colts so far remain to see, I want you to tell me where you think that quarterback would get selected in the redraft of all quarterbacks in the NFL by teams randomly drawing their draft order. C.J. Stroud.
He's I think he's in the teens, probably. Early teens.
Okay.
Teens.
Trevor Lawrence.
He's middle of the pack somewhere. I mean, frankly, middle of the pack, if not just beyond, I think. Probably late teens.
Okay. Sam Darnold.
Sam Darnold, man. Like, I think when you look at his performance this year, it's a top 10 performance. But is that who he is? I think you have to say he is, I guess. I had my doubts after the playoff game last year, but I think this is him.
Yeah. This is the one that's kind of a tough one. Brock Purdy / Mac Jones. I mean, I guess kind of the same guy, right?
Mm-hmm. So, I would say, let's go Brock Purdy. I think very interesting. I think Brock Purdy is a little bit of what's going on with Daniel Jones, that I said earlier, like paired with the right coach and great decision-making, et cetera. Man, this is tough. I would say Brock Purdy, like 11, 12, 13 in
fair.
that range.
That's fair. Okay.
Yeah, because like if you put him on another team, it doesn't look the same. That's what I think.
Eddie, did you happen to figure out the name of the midday show in Houston?
The Loop.
The Loop.
No, that makes sense.
That sounds loopy, doesn't it? The Loop, that would be in Chicago, doesn't it?
Oh, sorry, in the Loop.
In the Loop.
The Loop.
610, right? 610 is a loop.
Yep.
Look, well, every
interstate.
I don't know if you know this or not, Stephen, but any interstate that has a 4 or a 6 is a loop that is bypassed then by the last two numbers. Did you know that?
Well, that is fair. Okay.
Yeah. So the 610 is a loop that is intersected by the 10, right? Hey, y'all, it's 610 the Loop here. Coming up, we got tickets to give away again. We got a big concert coming up
they have
there.
a few highways in Houston. I don't know if you know this.
Toby Keith is coming up, backed up on the 610, by the way. Speaking of backed up, don't park in the P1 here in our building. We got poo floating around. That's actually true here in this building today. All right, Stephen, appreciate the time as always.
Hey, and if you miss your exit in Houston for the highway, just wait another mile. There will be another expressway. You'll be fine.
That is exactly correct. It is the largest metroplex just sprawling amongst the fields that you can find anywhere. The biggest city that actually has no identity, Houston, Texas. Trey Essex, by the way, former Colts lineman, going to join us other side here, Aquarian Company on the Fan. I'm fired up, Eddie. Fired up for this weekend. I think it's the best weekend in Indy, weather-wise aside. But, I mean, you got the Circle of Lights downtown. You got the high school football state title. You got the Pacers playing. You got a Christmas Carol starting at IRT. You got, obviously, the Colts game. Huh?
What's the IRT?
It'd be the Indiana Repertory Theater.
Oh, thanks.
Right around the corner from us.
Really?
Mm-hmm. You know, the big thing says theater, and you got the Hilbert Circle Theater, and then you got the IRT over there.
So, I couldn't see beyond all the cranes that have been downtown for all these years.
Fixing the steps of the Monument Circle, correct?
Yeah.
Joining us now, he is, of course, a return guest to the program, former Pittsburgh Steeler, former Colt also, and the pride of Fort Wayne High School, Paul Harding High School, as a matter of fact. Trey Essex joining us on the program. Trey, how are you?
Fantastic, Jake. Appreciate you shouting out my Harding High School, my fellow Hawks.
I'm curious of this. Are you in the Harding High School Athletic Hall of Fame?
So something unique about my high school, it doesn't exist the way it was when I was around. They closed it and opened it up and made it into some kind of charter school, associate college. Still has the name Harding, but with that came their purging of all things athletic. So to answer your question, there is no Harding Hall of Fame, and no, I'm not a part of it, but I am an Indiana High School Hall of Famer in football, so I'll take that.
Now, that is impressive, by the way. I mean, honestly, I'm looking right here on the Wikipedia page of Paul Harding High School, and it lists 4 prominent alumni. You are listed first, by the way, both alphabetically and in the heart of all of those from Harding. Would you like to guess the other 3?
Craig Riley, Jim Masters.
Craig Riley is not. That's the former Purdue center, right?
Yeah.
Okay. He is not listed. That's not to say he didn't go there, and he's not say he's not prominent. He's not listed. Jim Master is correct. 1980 77 Mr. Basketball, I think that's right. 76 or 77, right?
Yeah.
No, 80. He was at 1980 Mr. Basketball, sorry. Okay. You got 2 others.
Rod Smith.
Yes.
Selwyn Lyman.
You got it. Nice.
Okay.
Ring it up. Ring it up.
Go.
All right, I want to begin with this. In the time that you were in the NFL, did you have teams that went through, and what is the NFL player perspective of the Colts are not in a situation, Trey, where it's panic time. They've lost 2 of 3 after a fabulous start. They are still in very good position, but it's starting to get real here in terms of their schedule. How much do players feel that? When media is talking about it and fans, what about players?
Well, whenever you get to this part of the year, there's always a sense of urgency, especially when you're started out so well like the Colts have done and they've lost to, granted, I mean, they lost to us and then they lost to a very good defense in Kansas City. So it wasn't like they lost to lesser competition, although I would argue we the Pittsburgh Steelers weren't as talented as the Colts, and we got through that game because of all the turnovers, and I think the Colts pretty much lost that game. But to answer your question, I think players do feel it. We understand this is when a lot of times also you have these player incentives coming in, whether they be individual or team related. They start to rear their head now because you understand I have this many catches, this many yards, this many sacks. Also, I get a bonus for making it to the playoffs. I get a bonus for winning so many amount of games. A lot of this stuff is in people's contracts, a lot of it in players' contracts. And so all that combined does add a sense of urgency and a lot more pressure as you get down to these last 6-7 games of the season.
You know, and when you have guys, can that be a disruption, Trey? I'm not saying with this Colts group, just generically speaking in the NFL or as a professional athlete. When you have guys on your roster, your team that you know have individualized incentives heading in towards the end of the year, and maybe you even say to yourself, yeah, but to accommodate that gets away from the style we need to do or whatever else. Does that ever come into play in terms of like a friction?
No. And usually you don't. And players know we're not going to switch up our entire offensive scheme or do unless I remember a couple of years ago, Hines Ward, when I was playing, I say a couple of years ago, so like 10, 15 years ago, he had to get one more catch or like 9 more yards to get to 1,000 yards to hit his bonus. And everybody actually wants a guy like Hines Ward on his team to get as much money as you can. Everybody does for that fact. Wants you to be able to get your money, but not at the expense of scheme, not at the expense of doing something out of the ordinary. If the opportunity presents itself, for Hines, we did like a little screen pass out to the side to pick up the extra yard or catch. I can't remember exactly what it was. And it was towards the end of the game when the game had been pretty much decided. So you see teams do that a lot, but not at the expense of the team.
Now, Eddie just asked me this question. I don't think he's trying to knock on Lyman, but as soon as you started talking, Eddie Garrison turns off the mic and looks at me and goes, what incentive what bonuses would a lineman get? What would it be? Number of snaps? Is that what it would be? Fewest number of sacks allowed?
No, because the sacks things are so subjective. What's attributed to you as a sack your coach or your stat guy might not attribute it to you. The quarterback goes onto the ball forever and he gets sacked. Even though it's your guy, it may not be attributed to you. So it's hard to really quantify that, what's your fault and what's somebody else's fault. But you do get some guys who get incentives for percentage of snaps played. Obviously, you get end-game roster bonuses for every game that you're available. But for linemen, incentives are few and far in between. We only get the percentage of snaps one, and maybe like if your team makes the playoffs or your team rushes for so many yards or you're in the top 10 rushing as a unit. So some of those are involved, but it's not a lot.
Number of wristwatches and or pieces of jewelry that you received from quarterbacks over the course of your career.
Jewelry or wristwatches?
There's always that rumor, right? There's always these guys like, hey, did you hear? Like Earl Campbell got Rolexes for every member of his offensive line, all that kind of crap.
No jewelry. Not that I recall. We did. Big Ben would buy us suits and jackets, stuff that you could actually wear over time. It's out of style now, but I still have my overcoat that he got us. Alan Faneca, the Hall of Fame guard. I don't know if you guys remember him. Played with us. Played with the Jets. Played for the Arizona Cardinals. He got us Mac laptops when they first came out, which was pretty cool. And then got us this. Do you remember TiVo? The old recording thing? He got us one of those when they first came out.
TiVo, that was like the initial installment of you could rewind your television. It was like groundbreaking, right?
Right. It was groundbreaking. It was, yeah. And so he got us, it was a whole separate device you had to hook up to your TV. Really aging myself right now. Dang. TiVo. But yeah, we got cool little knickknacks and gifts for Christmas. We got some Tiffany stemware, glassware from the Roonies one time. So no jewelry per se, but other stuff that was pretty valuable.
I thought you said, do you remember Tebow? And I was thinking, yeah, that's the mania that we all want to just go back and erase. You know what I mean? Like rewind and erase it.
Yeah.
Trey, what is your thought on Trey Essex is my guest, Java House Peel and Pour guest line. The Colts themselves and Daniel Jones. You know, you have watched this game. When I say this game, I mean the NFL from a far more, intellectual eye than myself of knowing kind of in the trenches, maybe even being able to tell when a quarterback is uncomfortable or regressing, I'll say for lack of a better phrase. What has been your overall assessment of the quarterbacking play of Daniel Jones, let's say in the last handful of games versus the beginning or first month of the year?
If JT isn't running the ball well, he struggles. When the game is on his back and he has to be the one to dictate things offensively, he struggles. If the defense takes away his first look, he can scramble, he can extend plays, and oftentimes he will find some guys. But naturally going through progressions and making plays and throws on time, he struggles. And so I think we exposed that 2 weeks ago, and I think Kansas City took some of the framework that we use defensively and applied it to their game. You got to stop JT. If you stop him, it limits their offense tremendously. And I don't know if Daniel Jones is the quarterback that's capable of overcoming a lack of a run game.
Did you see that at the beginning of the year, or has it only been almost of late where, for example, the team you used to play for, the Pittsburgh Steelers, the pressure that they put on him, did that expose Jones a little bit or open up a blueprint? Or is that simply Pittsburgh finally finding out defensively who they are?
Pittsburgh is Dr. Jekyll, Mr. Hyde, and they were whoever the good version of one of those. Is it Mr. Hyde that's the good person? They were that versus the Colts. But they've been Dr. Jekyll every other week. So they just happen to have a good game and the right game plan to fluster Daniel Jones. They did some things. The number one thing that I mentioned before, they stopped JT. They stopped Jonathan Taylor. And once you do that, you really increase your successes as a defense. And that's not just against Daniel Jones. That's against anybody. You stop the run game, but especially a team like Indy that's so dependent on their running game and that offensive line. Daniel Jones has done a great job of distributing the ball. He's made Alex Pierce into a legit, I think, number one, number two receiver, doing that deep ball well. I think he's doing a lot of great things in that offense. But throughout the year, you're seeing that defenses start to pick up on the fact that if you get him off his first read, he's going to struggle. If you put the game on his back, he's going to struggle. Pittsburgh did that tremendously, and Kansas City has some success doing that as well. He didn't turn the ball over versus Kansas City. At least he didn't have a fumble, did he? I see he didn't throw any interceptions.
Correct.
But they stopped. John Taylor had 18 carries for 45 yards, and Daniel Jones wasn't really able to be efficient in that pass game. Kansas City is a really good defense, top 5 rushing defense, top 4 scoring defense, top 8 overall. So, I mean, they did a really good job, and I think that is the blueprint moving forward. I don't think Daniel Jones is a game breaker. He's a game manager. He does it well, and I think Steichen has done a good job of putting him in very fortuitous situations as far as where to go with the ball and scheming guys open.
Do you
but
think
if those schemes aren't working?
Trey, are those things that you're pointing out, are these things, do you think, that have just recently been exposed and discovered, or are these things that you think most in the NFL knew about Daniel Jones and it's just now starting to show itself?
I think this is what they know about him. I think the NFL has figured Daniel Jones out. I do think he's a talented quarterback, and he's a safe option for the Colts, especially when you look at what Anthony Richard was for them, being the inconsistent quarterback, the inconsistent thrower, and turning the ball over the way he did. But Daniel Jones is not a secret. I mean, he's been in the league for now 5-6 years. He has developed some habits that are going to be hard to break at this point in his career, even with what Shane Steichen has been able to do to kind of highlight his strengths. And I think he's done a great job with that. But he is who he is.
At Trey Day 79, that's TRAI, Trey Day 79. Also the Snap Count Show. Trey Essex joining us on the program. Trey, in conclusion, and this one I'm going to put myself out on a limb here because I have a feeling that I'm going to ask a question that I'm going to immediately slap myself and go, yeah, dude, how did you not know this? Who exactly was Paul Harding?
Dude, I don't know who Paul Harding is.
I didn't know. At first, I was like, wait a minute. Is he like a governor that I didn't know about, or like the pride of Fort Wayne? I remember one time I asked somebody, I'm like, yeah, a buddy of mine went to JMU. I go, now, who is James Madison? He's like, the president? I'm like, oh, my gosh, of course. How did I not think that? So there's not an obvious answer on who Paul Harding is. We're going to guess that he was like a school board member, right?
I guess. Dude, I've never actually thought about that. That is, I got to look that up, and it's a shame that I've never even posed that question to myself.
Welcome to the world of my neurotic insomnia, Trey. These are the things that keep me awake at night.
I'm looking it up. He is some kind of, well, that's not our Paul.
Oh, there's an author. Yeah, I looked it up. There's some author that wrote a book in 2010. I'm like, oh, that's not it, right?
That's definitely not him. No.
Yeah.
So,
all right, that's your assignment until we talk to you next time. Find out who Paul Harding is.
I'll have it for you, I promise.
All right, appreciate it. Trey Essex joining us on the program. We have tickets to give away, do we not, Eddie?
Yes, we do.
That is for the Big Ten Fan Fest.
Big Ten Fan Fest.
And we're going to do that in what fashion? Caller
Text
number
line.
what?
Text line.
Oh, text line.
Text line.
All right, 239-1070 is the telephone number. All you got to do is tell me this. The first one that can answer in and let me know this, Trey Essex played collegiately where? If you know that, if you know where Trey Essex played collegiately, it is a school in the Big Ten, then you are on your way to the Big Ten Fan Fest, which is going to be part of course, the fabulous next weekend, the fabulous Big Ten Football Championship and the Fan Fest that takes place with, they got bands there, they got the BTN there, they got trophies on display, all of it. It is awesome, and we have tickets to give away. We will do that. If you know the answer, send it to the text line at 239-1070. Great song. One of the highlights of my winter last year was seeing this band at the Hi-Fi and just playing this song. They did like about a 10-minute version of this song. It was awesome. J&V has arrived. John, I asked a question on Twitter earlier that is custom made for you, I think. Okay. What do you think is Molly Ringwald's signature movie?
To me, it's 16 Candles. I think it's personal preference, right? I think most would probably say Breakfast Club because, they think that has that, teen angst deeply rooted more than just kind of a fun movie, right?
Part of me wonders if it's not – I actually think maybe, and it's the only of the three that I've not seen, Pretty in Pink. I mean, 16 Candles, it's hard to argue that.
Yeah.
But at the same time – there are two other characters that kind of steal the movie as well, right? I mean, obviously Anthony Michael Hall's in it too, but Jake Ryan has become such a pop cultural thing, and then obviously Long Duck is great.
I think that it's the essential girl Sweet 16.
That's fair.
Film.
That's fair.
Thus, that's why I would view it that way.
Yeah, Pretty in Pink, and I've not seen Pretty in Pink. Who was in that with her?
Well,
because she seemed to be just the only star in it,
Andrew McCarthy, James Spader was the classic horse's ass.
Did you see the Andrew McCarthy documentary where he goes back and kind of runs down everybody?
I have not seen that yet, but I've heard stuff about it.
The thing that's weird about it is you kind of get the impression, it's kind of sad because Andrew McCarthy in this documentary, he goes back and, he catches up with Molly Ringwald and he catches up with notably Emilio Estevez. I can't remember if Anthony Michael Hall or not, but all of them you could tell are kind of like, yeah, man, I've moved on from that. That was, and like with Andrew McCarthy, it's almost like he was holding on to, hey, look, let's get the band back together type thing.
Yeah, but you better hold on to it because that's your most memorable. And I've said this before about my meeting with Pauly Shore at Twin Peaks. He was at the bar. I was doing a show there, and I didn't know he was there. He just came out of the blue and said, hey, you want me to join you? And it was Pauly Shore. He was sitting at the bar, Castleton, Twin Peaks. So I said, yeah. He came over and sat down. I go, hey, man. I said, I want to talk a little bit about Encino Man. He goes, oh, there's nothing new. I don't know if I want to go there. I talk about that all the time. And I went, all right, so what are we going to talk about then? What the hell else is there? I mean, that's whatever.
Right.
I mean, I embrace those that understand what is so meaningful to you that you bring it up every stinking time because it's meaningful to you.
Right.
That's why. And
you're right.
That stuff drives me nuts. Because nobody gives two craps about your new stuff. But they do care about Encino Man. They do care about, your relationship with Sam Kinison. They care about your days on MTV. The language that you kind of developed for that particular era that everybody was taking on board. They care about that. They don't care about this other crap right now.
John, as well as I, in 1990, like Mike Rosen comes to mind. I went to high school with. I mean, there was a whole culture of guys that were walking around like, hey, buddy.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, the whole.
Wheeze in the juice.
Yeah. I mean, the whole.
Wheeze the juice. Wheeze the juice.
The whole Pauly Shore thing. What's lined up on the big program today?
Seth Payne, the former defensive lineman. The Texans does the Believe Network podcast. He's going to join us. I do want to find out what is actually real about Houston.
Yeah.
And what we've just kind of seen in spurts. If this is real.
Doesn't it feel like Houston and the Colts are kind of two teams with two totally different. In other words, it feels like the Texans, it's starting to come together for them a little bit, and the Colts, it's starting to get away a little bit. Does that make sense?
Yeah. I don't think there's any doubt. It just seems like that one team, two, if you count Jacksonville, kind of in gear right now, and the Colts are maybe facing a little bit the other direction.
Yeah.
So, and, you have the opportunity. You got two must-wins coming back-to-back. You cannot drop, really, either one of these games, and that means you're going to have to win in Jacksonville, too, coming up the week after this. So you put yourself in a position to where there's a reason you get out in front of everything, and you give yourself the space. But now it's shrinking. You got to do something about it, and you got to prove to everybody that you're legit.
Eddie, did you happen to get a winner for our Big Ten Fan Fest tickets?
Yeah, since we have so many, I gave away a couple. We've got John and Brady, two winners for today.
John Brady, former coach, LSU, Final Four. They knew that Trey Essex, by the way, Northwestern is where he went to college. All right, John's up next. He will bring you home until 6 p.m. today, correct, John?
You got it, buddy, 6 o'clock.
And we will be back with you at noon tomorrow. Thanks again, Scott Agness. Thanks to Stephen Holder. Thanks to Trey Essex. And thanks to all of you for listening to Query and Company. We will be back with you at noon tomorrow here on 93.5 and 107.5 The Fan.